The cordless phone was still on Dad's bedside table 6 weeks after we buried him. Mom had left it there under a film of dust, beside an empty bottle of saline spray and the little brass bell he'd rung whenever the oxygen machine started making what he called that haunted refrigerator noise. I was clearing the table when I found the call history. The final outgoing call had been placed at 12:47 a.m. on the night he died. I checked the number twice, although I'd known Ryan's cell number since he was 23 and kept changing carriers to avoid paying cancellation fees. Mom was standing in the doorway with a garbage bag. "What?" she asked. I looked at the timestamp again. Ryan had told us Dad died at 12:41. He'd said he was holding Dad's right hand when it happened. At 12:47, Dad's bedroom phone had called Ryan. "Claire," Mom said, sharper now, "what did you find?" I turned around. Her face changed before I answered. Not confusion, not curiosity, fear. That was the moment I first understood that the question wasn't only where my brother had been, it was how many people had already decided I didn't deserve to know. 6 months earlier, before timestamps and funeral casseroles and relatives quoting my father's last words back to me, Dad was alive and furious about tapioca pudding. "This is an insult," he said. "It's pudding. It's a cup of wet gravel. You asked for it. I asked for chocolate. You asked for tapioca." Mom wrote it down. Mom glanced up from the kitchen table, where she was arranging pharmacy receipts into piles that made sense only to her. "You did ask for tapioca, Walt." Dad pointed his spoon at her. His hand shook enough to launch one pearl of tapioca onto the blanket across his lap. "Et tu, Elaine." "You used that one yesterday," I told him. "It's a classic." He was sitting in the recliner we'd moved into the den because he could no longer make it upstairs without stopping twice. Clear oxygen tubing curved under his nose and trailed across the rug to the machine in the corner. I had taped the tubing down in 3 places after Mom caught her sandal in it and nearly dragged both Dad and the machine toward the fireplace. Dad hated the tape. He said it made the house look like a crime scene managed by an office supply store. He also checked it every morning to make sure I hadn't removed it. That was how things worked between us. He complained about everything I did and became anxious if I didn't do it. Mom folded one receipt into a tiny square. Ryan said he might stop by. Dad's spoon paused. I saw it, Mom saw it, Dad knew we saw it, so he scooped up more pudding and made a theatrical face of suffering. "What does might mean?" I asked. "It means," he said, "I might stop by." "Today, I assume?" "Mom, what? You talk to him. I talk to people all the time without conducting depositions." Dad chuckled, then started coughing. The laugh broke apart in his chest, rough and wet. I was beside him before he could wave me off. I moved the pudding, checked that the tubing hadn't kinked, and waited with one hand between his shoulder blades. "I'm fine," he gasped. "Great. Keep breathing anyway." He coughed harder, then finally drew a thin, whistling breath. Mom stood halfway out of her chair, holding the little receipt square between 2 fingers. "Should I call someone?" "No," Dad and I said together. His eyes met mine. Even sick, he could still produce the look that had sent me back to my seat at the dinner table when I was 28 and arguing with Ryan about whether ketchup expired. "Don't hover," he said. "I'm not hovering. You're close enough to identify my fillings. You have dentures. That's private medical information." Mom laughed too loudly. We all did that then. We grabbed at any joke Dad offered because the alternative was listening to the oxygen machine push air into a man who had once carried a refrigerator down our basement stairs because he didn't want to wait for Ryan to come help. Ryan arrived 2 hours later wearing a suede jacket and carrying sandwiches from Bellini's. Dad lit up so fast it embarrassed all of us. "There he is," he said, pushing himself straighter in the recliner. "The prodigal son brings cured meats." "Only the best," Ryan said. He bent to hug Dad and held on a second longer than I expected. Ryan could be careless, but he wasn't cold. That was what made it difficult to hate him cleanly. He loved people in bursts so warm they could make you forget the long spaces between them. He kissed Mom's cheek, handed me the bag, and said, "Roast beef for Dad. He can't eat roast beef." Ryan's smile slipped. Since when? Since chewing started exhausting him. Dad reached for the bag. I can chew. You got winded eating scrambled eggs. Those were aggressive eggs. Ryan laughed. Dad laughed. Then Dad coughed again, and Ryan looked toward the window until it passed. I took the sandwiches into the kitchen. Ryan followed me, rubbing the back of his neck. You could have told me, he said. I did. In the family text. There are like 9,000 messages in there. Most of them are updates about Dad. And Mom sending pictures of birds. One bird. She thought it was an owl. It was a plastic bag. It was dusk. Ryan leaned against the counter while I unpacked the food. He was 42, 3 years older than me, and still had the irritatingly open face that made strangers tell him where they kept their spare keys. His hair had gone silver at the temples in a way that looked intentional. Mine had gone gray in a streak near my forehead that made cashiers call me ma'am. How bad is it? He asked quietly. I looked at him. He meant the question. He also wanted an answer that would let him leave in 45 minutes. Bad. Yeah, I know, but bad how? He needs someone here all the time now. He gets confused when his oxygen drops. Mom isn't sleeping. He fell Tuesday. Ryan straightened. He fell? It was in the text. Okay, can you stop saying that? Can you start reading it? He opened his mouth, closed it, and looked toward the den. Did he hurt himself? Bruised his hip. I got him up. By yourself? Mom helped. You should have called me. I did. That landed. He pulled out his phone, scrolled, and found the missed call exactly where I knew it would be. For one satisfying second, I watched him have no argument. Then Dad called from the other room. Ryan, tell your sister I'm eating the roast beef. Ryan grinned. You heard the man. I heard a man who thinks mucus is a political conspiracy. I made Dad half a sandwich with the crust removed and cut the roast beef into pieces so small it looked like confetti. Ryan carried the plate in and accepted Dad's delight as if he'd slaughtered the cow himself. That afternoon was a miniature version of our entire family. Ryan sat beside Dad and pulled stories out of him. Bad bosses, worse vacations, the time Dad drove 8 hours to buy a fishing boat that sank at the dock. Mom relaxed enough to put her receipts away. I changed the filter in the oxygen machine, called the hospice pharmacy, cleaned the bathroom, and wrote down when Dad took his medication. Every time I passed through the den, Dad and Ryan were laughing. Every time Dad needed to stand, he called my name. Around 5, Ryan checked his phone and announced that he had to meet someone about a job. Ryan sold commercial flooring, though the way he described it, you would have thought he was negotiating peace between rival carpet nations. Dad tried not to look disappointed. Hey, you just got here, Mom said. I've been here 3 hours. 2.5, I said. Ryan shot me a look. Dad waved his hand. Go. We're not running a prison. I'll come back Thursday. You don't have to. I said I will. Dad nodded, studying the blanket over his knees. I followed Ryan to the front door because apparently disappointment also needed an escort. Thursday, I said. I heard myself. If you can't, tell him before he spends all day waiting. Ryan pulled on his jacket. You know, not every visit has to be scheduled like a dental extraction. No, it just has to happen. I have a life, Claire. So do I. He glanced past me toward the den, then lowered his voice. Do you? That hurt because it was cruel, and it hurt more because I had asked myself the same thing. I lived 12 minutes from our parents in a 2-bedroom townhouse where the second bedroom had slowly become a supply depot. Disposable pads, gloves, pill organizers, unopened packages of socks Dad claimed were too tight. I worked remotely as an operations manager for a company that made restaurant equipment, which everyone in my family had translated into Claire can answer whenever we call. I had friends. I had a standing Wednesday dinner with a woman named Marisol who had stopped pretending not to notice when I canceled. I had plants that survived mainly because neglect made them feel challenged. What I didn't have anymore was a day that belonged entirely to me. Ryan must have seen something in my face because his expression softened. That came out wrong. It came out exactly how you meant it. No, I meant you're here too much. Someone has to be. I can help. Thursday. Yes, Thursday. He hugged me before I could decide whether I wanted him to. He smelled like cedar cologne and the cold air from outside. You're good at this stuff, he said. That was supposed to be gratitude. In our family, it functioned as a life sentence. Ryan did come Thursday. He was 40 minutes late and brought a milkshake Dad wasn't supposed to have, but he came. I covered for him anyway, telling Dad a customer meeting ran long when the truth was that Ryan had forgotten which Thursday he promised. The weeks narrowed around us. Dad's world shrank from the whole house to the den, then from the den to the distance between his recliner and the portable commode by the bookshelf. Mom developed the habit of asking me questions while I was already answering different ones. Did he get the blue pill? The blue one was discontinued. What about the one for nausea? It's on the tray. Ryan thinks we should ask about a hospital bed. I asked 2 weeks ago. Did you? It arrives tomorrow. She would nod, relieved, and then say, Thank God Ryan thought of it. Dad grew meaner as he got weaker, then apologized in sideways ways. He told me my coffee tasted burned and drank every drop. He accused me of rearranging his things, then panicked when he couldn't see me from the recliner. One night, after I changed the damp sheet beneath him, he caught my wrist. His hand was light and hot. You make this bearable, he said. I stopped moving. Dad looked immediately irritated with himself. Direct tenderness embarrassed him more than needing help to stand. You also tuck the corners too tight. There he is, I said. He squeezed my wrist once and let go. 3 days later, his breathing changed. I knew before Mom did, maybe before Dad did. There was a pause after each breath that seemed to last half a second too long, as if his body were considering whether another one was worth the trouble. By evening, I had been awake nearly 30 hours. I was kneeling beside the hospital bed, checking the medication log, when the front door opened. Ryan walked into the den carrying an overnight bag. He looked from Dad to me and seemed to understand for once exactly how bad was. I'm staying, he said. Dad turned his head on the pillow. Mom pressed both hands over her mouth, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Relief lasted maybe 7 seconds. Then I saw the way Ryan was holding the overnight bag. Not casually, like someone prepared to stay. He had both hands wrapped around the handles, knuckles pale, as if he needed the bag to keep him from backing out the door. You don't have to, Mom said, which was what she always said when she desperately wanted him to do something. I know. He set the bag beside the couch. That's why it counts. Dad made a sound that might have been a laugh. His eyes were closed, his face pinched with the effort of breathing. Ryan crouched by the bed. Hey, Dad. Dad opened his eyes. You came back. 3 ordinary words, but Ryan flinched like he'd been slapped. Told you I would. You say lots of things. Good to see you too. Dad lifted 2 fingers. Ryan took his hand. I looked away and pretended to be interested in the medication log. There were times when their relationship felt like a door I had been assigned to hold open, but was not allowed to walk through. Mom touched my shoulder. Go home. I'm fine. You're wearing 2 different socks. I looked down. She was right. One was black, the other navy blue with tiny white sailboats. They're both dark. One has boats. It's nautical black. Claire. I need to show Ryan what to do. I know what to do, Ryan said. I turned toward him. He was still holding Dad's hand, but his chin had lifted in challenge. What dose did he get at 7? Ryan's expression went blank. Exactly. You've been handling the medicine. That doesn't mean I can't learn. Dad's eyes moved between us. Could you 2 wait until I'm dead to compete over who's more irritating? Mom covered her mouth again, but this time she was hiding a laugh. Ryan smiled despite himself. Sorry, I said. I'm not, Ryan said. She started it. Dad closed his eyes. Raised by wolves. We kept our voices low while I showed Ryan the tray. The liquid medication was measured into labeled syringes, and I had written the times in block letters large enough to read in the dim light. I demonstrated how to wet the foam swabs for Dad's mouth and how to adjust the bed without making him feel as if he were sliding downhill. If he gets agitated, call the hospice number first, I said. It's on the fridge and in Mom's phone. Got it. If his breathing changes, I'll call. If he tries to stand, don't let him do it alone. Ryan nodded. And don't increase the oxygen just because he says he can't breathe. More isn't always, Claire. What? I've got it. You didn't 5 minutes ago, and now I do. He sounded annoyed, but not unserious. He picked up the medication log and read it instead of merely glancing at it. I watched his lips move slightly over the handwritten instructions. Mom went upstairs to bring down an extra blanket. When she was gone, Ryan lowered the clipboard. You look terrible. Thank you, I mean it. That helps. When did you last sleep? I tried to remember. Tuesday? It's Thursday. I know what day it is. You had to think about it. From the bed, Dad whispered. Go home, Claire. His voice was so faint that both of us leaned closer. I'm okay. No, you're not. Neither are you. That's different. Of course it was. Dad was dying. But there was something almost comfortable about his certainty that his needs were legitimate, and mine were administrative errors I should correct in private. He opened his eyes. You've done enough today. The word today snagged somewhere inside me. If he had said enough, I might have fallen apart. Today gave me a place to put the feeling. I can sleep on the couch. You don't sleep. You listen at people. That isn't a thing. It is when you do it. Ryan smiled without looking up from the clipboard. Dad's fingers moved weakly in his. Let him do something, Dad said. I should have heard the old imbalance in that sentence. Ryan's presence was something he got to do. Mine was simply the structure around which everyone else made choices. Instead, I heard permission. Mom returned with a faded green blanket and a pillow from the guest room. I made up your bed, she told Ryan. Not that you'll use it. I'll be down here. You can take turns resting. I'm staying with him. Dad turned his head a fraction toward Ryan. That settled it. Mom went to the kitchen and packed food for me as if I were leaving for a 3-day journey instead of driving 12 minutes. I checked the medication tray again. I changed the water in the humidifier. I put a clean shirt for Dad on the back of a chair, though I knew there might not be a morning in which he needed it. At the front door, Ryan caught up with me. Hey, what? He held out his phone. I put the hospice number in. Congratulations. And I set alarms for the medication. I glanced at the screen. He had entered the times correctly. Okay. Go sleep. I pulled on my coat. You'll call me if he wakes up? Yes. If he asks for me? Yes. If anything changes? Yes, Claire. Don't decide not to because you think I need rest. His face tightened. I'm not you. I don't make decisions for everybody. I stared at him. He exhaled and rubbed his forehead. Sorry. That was cheap. Cheap things are usually your specialty. I deserved that. Probably. He surprised me by reaching out and straightening my collar. It was such a brotherly gesture that for a second I remembered us before our roles had hardened. Ryan teaching me to drive in Dad's Buick. Me picking him up from a bar after his divorce because he didn't want Mom to know he'd started smoking again. All the quiet ways we had rescued each other before rescue became my permanent address. He's not going to be alone, Ryan said. I looked past him. Through the opening to the den, I could see Dad's hospital bed and one pale hand resting on the blanket. Neither is Mom. I'm here. I nodded. Outside, the air was cold enough to hurt my teeth. Ryan stood in the doorway until I reached my car. Dad's bedroom had once been upstairs, but since the hospital bed came, we had started calling the den his room. That night, the windows glowed yellow against the dark, and I sat behind the wheel watching the house for no reason I could explain. Then Mom's silhouette passed through the upstairs hallway. Ryan moved beside the bed downstairs. Everything was covered. I drove home. My townhouse smelled stale, like a place someone had paused instead of lived in. A mug sat in the sink with coffee dried into a brown ring. An unfolded basket of laundry blocked the hallway. The thermostat said 64 because I had turned it down days earlier and forgotten I still paid to be comfortable there. I carried Mom's food into the kitchen, set it on the counter, and stared at it. Turkey on wheat, an apple, 2 oatmeal cookies, and one of Dad's tapioca cups. I laughed so suddenly it came out as a sob. My phone rang at 10:04. I answered before the first full ring. What happened? Nothing, Mom said. Nothing happened. Then don't call me at 10 o'clock and lead with your breathing. My breathing? You're doing that thing. I have no idea what you mean. Behind her, I heard the television. Dad liked old game show reruns because he could follow them even when the medication made him foggy. How is he? Resting. Is Ryan with him? Yes. Did he get the 10 o'clock dose? A pause. I assume so. Mom, I'm not going downstairs to supervise your brother. I'm not asking you to supervise him. I'm asking if Dad got his medication. I'll check. I heard her move, then a muffled exchange. Ryan came onto the line. He got it. On time? At 10. How's his breathing? Same as when you left. What does that mean? It means bad, Claire. It's been bad. His voice sounded strained, and I softened. Is he awake? Not really. Did he ask for me? No. The answer was too quick, though maybe I only thought that later. Put the phone near him. He's sleeping. I won't make him talk. Then what's the point? I want him to know I'm there. Ryan was silent. Please. I heard the rustle of clothing, then Ryan's voice farther away. Claire's on the phone, Dad. For several seconds, there was only the television audience applauding some stranger's correct answer. Then came a breath. Thin, uneven, familiar. Dad? Another breath. It's me. I'm home. Ryan's staying with you and Mom's upstairs. Everybody's okay. I had no idea why I said that. Dad was the one person who was not okay. You don't have to talk, I continued. I just wanted to say goodnight. Something moved against the receiver. Maybe his hand. Maybe Ryan adjusting the phone. Night, Dad whispered. I closed my eyes. Good night. I love you. The line stayed open long enough for me to wonder if he'd heard me. Then Dad said, sleep. It was the last word I ever heard him speak. At 10:36, Ryan sent a text. Resting comfortably. I've got him. Put your phone down. I replied with a heart because anything longer would have turned into instructions. I showered. I put on matching socks. I climbed into bed with my phone beside my face and the volume turned all the way up. When I woke, the room was dark and my mouth tasted metallic. For one confused second, I thought I was still at Mom and Dad's house. My phone showed 2:08 a.m., 3 missed calls, all from Mom. I called while dragging on the jeans I'd left beside the bed. She answered, but didn't speak. Mom? Her breath broke. No, I said. I'm sorry. No, put Ryan on, Claire, put him on. I heard movement, then Ryan. His voice was low and wrecked. He's gone. What happened? He just stopped breathing. When? There was a pause so small I might not have noticed it if I hadn't spent months timing breaths. 12:41. My hand stopped on the bedroom doorknob. Why am I finding out now? Mom needed a minute. What about me? Just come over. The drive took 9 minutes. I remember every red light, though I don't remember stopping at any of them. Ryan opened the front door before I reached it. He was barefoot. His shirt was wrinkled, and there was a dark smear across one sleeve. Mom stood behind him in her robe, gripping its collar closed. I went straight to the den. Dad lay exactly where I had left him, except his mouth was open and the oxygen machine was off. I touched his cheek. Cold had already begun making a claim. I was holding his hand, Ryan said behind me, at the end. I looked at Dad's right hand resting on the green blanket. Ryan came closer. He woke up before it happened, he said. He was clear, Claire. Clearer than he's been in weeks. Mom made a soft sound. Ryan's eyes filled. He told me things, he said. Things he wanted us to know. And even before he opened his mouth again, my brother had begun replacing the last night I knew with one only he could give us. "What things?" I asked. Ryan looked at Mom instead of me. She wrapped her robe more tightly around herself. "Let him tell it." I was still touching Dad's cheek. The skin near his temple felt almost normal, but his jaw was slack in a way I had never seen, not even during his deepest medicated sleep. Ryan pulled the desk chair close to the bed and sat. He placed his hands between his knees. "He woke up around midnight," he said, "maybe a little before." He was trying to say something, so I leaned in. What was he trying to say? My name. Dad had whispered one syllable to me at 10 o'clock and needed several breaths to do it. Ryan said his own name as if Dad had called it across a crowded room. He was very alert, Ryan continued. It was like the fog lifted. "I've heard that can happen." Mom nodded immediately. People rally at the end. She said it with the confidence of someone repeating a fact she had discovered 30 seconds earlier. "What did he say?" I asked. Ryan rubbed his palms against his jeans. He said he was sorry. For what? For being so hard on me. For acting like I disappointed him all the time. I looked at Dad's face. There were 100 reasons that apology could have been real. Dad had been hard on Ryan. He had measured my brother's life against the life he thought Ryan should have wanted, then treated every change in direction as evidence of weak character. When Ryan left accounting to sell flooring, Dad called it a nervous breakdown with samples. When Ryan's marriage ended, Dad asked what he had done wrong before asking if he was okay. Ryan deserved an apology. That didn't mean he had received one. "He said he knew I loved him," Ryan continued. His voice shook. He said I shouldn't let guilt ruin the rest of my life. Mom crossed the room and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Oh, honey. I hated that my first reaction was suspicion. I hated that my second was jealousy. Dad had left me with sleep. Ryan had been given absolution. And then he asked about you," Ryan said. My chest tightened. "What about me? He wanted to know if you'd gone home. You told him I had." "Yeah." "And?" Ryan looked down at his hands again. He said good. The room seemed to contract around the hospital bed. "Good?" "He was glad you finally listened." Something in his tone changed. It became steadier, almost careful, as though he were repeating words he had already practiced. "He said he'd leaned on you too much, that you took on things nobody asked you to take on." I glanced at Mom. She was watching Ryan, her fingers still pressed into his shoulder. "What exactly did he say? I don't remember every exact word. You seem to remember yours." "Claire." "No, I want to know." Ryan stood so quickly the chair legs scraped the floor. "He said you needed to stop managing everybody. He said sometimes you made people feel like they couldn't breathe." The oxygen machine was silent in the corner. I looked at Dad, waiting for his face to object. It was ridiculous, but grief had already begun creating ridiculous expectations. I wanted his brow to furrow. I wanted one finger to twitch against the blanket. I wanted the dead to remain responsible for what the living put in their mouths. "Dad said that?" I asked. Ryan's anger disappeared, leaving him tired. "He loved you. He knew how much you did. That was his point." "What point?" "That you don't have to do everything." Mom stepped between us. "Not now. When would you prefer?" "Your father is lying right there. That's why I'm asking." Ryan wiped both hands over his face. He said you needed to let the family breathe. Those were his words. Then he asked me to take care of Mom. Mom's hand moved to her throat. "He did?" Ryan turned to her. "Yes." He said it gently, convincingly. For a moment, I watched them look at each other and felt like the only person in the room who had missed a meeting. "What happened after that?" I asked. Ryan sat again. He wanted water. He couldn't swallow water. "I know that, so what did you do?" I wet his mouth. "With what?" Ryan gestured toward the bedside table, the glass that was here. There wasn't a glass. He stared at me. "I removed it before I left. Then I got one from the kitchen." "What color was it?" "For God's sake, Claire," Mom snapped. Ryan looked from her to me. "Blue." Mom's water glasses were clear. The blue tumblers were in my townhouse because Dad had complained that clear glasses made water taste medicinal, and I had brought 4 from my own cabinet. 2 were in the dishwasher. 1 was beside my bed. The 4th had cracked the previous week. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Maybe Mom had found another blue glass. Maybe Ryan meant the foam swab cup. Maybe colors were not reliable at 2 in the morning beside your dead father. He settled down after that, Ryan said. I put on music. What music? That church song he liked. It is well with my soul. Dad hated that hymn. Mom liked it. She had played it while cooking Sunday dinner until Dad once asked if there were any hymns about being moderately inconvenienced. He squeezed my hand, Ryan said. Then he took one breath and another, and he just didn't take the next one. He pressed his fist against his mouth. Mom folded herself around him. Ryan buried his face against her robe, and the sound he made was so broken that my questions became indecent. I turned back to Dad. His right hand was still on the blanket. I slid mine under it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I wasn't sure which of us I meant. The hospice nurse arrived at 2:29. Her name was Denise, and she had come twice before, though never during my hours at the house. She was a broad-shouldered woman with red glasses and a voice that made every sentence sound both gentle and non-negotiable. She examined Dad while we stood in the kitchen listening to the refrigerator cycle on and off. Mom poured coffee and forgot to add coffee grounds. Ryan stared at the empty pot filling with hot water. Mom, what? You didn't put anything in. She looked at the machine, then began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It bent her forward against the counter until Ryan caught her elbows. I took the pot away before she dropped it. I'll do it. I can make coffee, she said. I know. Apparently I can't. It's 2:30 in the morning. Your father is dead. The words stopped all of us. Mom looked toward the den, startled by her own sentence. Denise appeared in the doorway a few minutes later. She told us Dad was gone as if we had not yet realized it. She used words like peaceful and comfortable. Ryan asked whether people sometimes became lucid before death. They can, she said. He looked at me. I hated him for needing a witness. I hated myself for noticing. Denise asked which funeral home we had chosen. Mom's face went blank. We talked about it, she said. Walt and I talked about it. I knew the name. I had written it in the folder with Dad's hospice papers after a conversation Mom left halfway through because she wanted to refill everyone's iced tea. I'll call, I said. Ryan touched my arm. I can. You don't know which one. Tell me. Ryan, Mom said, still looking toward the den. Stay with me. So I called. I answered Denise's questions. I found Dad's identification. I called the funeral home and gave a stranger information about the body in the next room while Ryan sat at the table with one arm around Mom. It took nearly 2 hours for the attendants to arrive. They were both middle-aged men in dark suits, one tall and one short, moving with the practiced quiet of people who knew every house contained a different version of the same worst night. Mom could not watch them take Dad. Ryan said he would. I stood at the foot of the bed while they transferred Dad onto the stretcher. His hospital gown had ridden up above one knee. I pulled the blanket down to cover him, an ordinary gesture that nearly destroyed me. The taller attendant waited while I tucked it around his legs. No rush, he said. There was, of course, no reason to rush anymore. Ryan stood beside me as they wheeled Dad through the den. At the front door, one of the stretcher wheels bumped the threshold, and Ryan reached out instinctively as though Dad might fall. After the van left, Mom locked the door. It was such a normal thing to do. We sat in the den because none of us could decide where else to go. The hospital bed looked enormous without Dad in it. His oxygen tubing lay across the rug, still secured by my strips of tape. Ryan picked up the remote and turned off the television. What was playing? Mom asked. What? When he died. What was on TV? Ryan hesitated. Nothing. I had music on. That's right, she said quickly. It is well. He nodded. I looked at both of them. Mom stood. I should change. Why? I asked. She glanced down as if surprised to find herself wearing a robe. "People will come. It's 4 in the morning. They'll come later. You can sleep first." She shook her head. "There are things to do. I'll handle them." Ryan looked at me. The words had left my mouth before I could stop them. Dad's supposed warning was barely 2 hours old, and already I was proving it for him. Mom seemed not to notice. "We'll need to tell everyone," she said. "I can call Aunt Marlene after 6. She'll be furious we waited. Aunt Marlene is furious when the grocery store moves the soup." Dad would have laughed at that. Mom almost did. Ryan leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. I should tell people what he said. I watched him. Why? Because it was important. To who? To all of us. No, most of it was about you, and you, especially me, apparently. Mom sank into Dad's recliner. It swallowed her in a way it never had him. "Please don't turn his last words into an argument. I'm not the one turning them into something." Ryan stood. "What are you accusing me of?" "I'm asking why Dad, who could barely say goodnight at 10, delivered a complete family evaluation before midnight." His face reddened. "Maybe because he was dying. He was dying when I was here. You don't get to decide what happened after you left." There it was. The first clean edge of the new reality. I had left. Ryan had stayed. Whatever happened in those missing hours belonged to him. Mom closed her eyes. "Stop," she said. "Both of you." Ryan walked to the window and pushed the curtain aside. Dawn had not started, but the glass had turned from black to charcoal. "He wanted us to be okay," he said. I looked at the flattened pillow on the hospital bed. Then why did he give you comfort and leave me a criticism? Ryan let the curtain fall. "Maybe he thought you were strong enough to hear it." That was another sentence my family used like praise. Strong enough to hear it. Strong enough to handle it. Strong enough to come when called and leave when dismissed. Mom held out one hand without opening her eyes. I took it because Ryan did not move quickly enough. Her fingers were cold. "Your father loved you," she said. I waited for her to say, "both of you." She didn't. By 7, I had called Aunt Marlene, Dad's closest friend, the funeral home again, and Mom's doctor to cancel an appointment she had forgotten. Ryan made eggs no one ate. Mom changed into black slacks and a cream sweater, then asked if the cream was disrespectful. At 8:15, Aunt Marlene arrived carrying a pound cake and wearing lipstick outside the line of her mouth. She hugged Mom, then Ryan, then me. "How did it happen?" she asked. Mom looked at Ryan. My brother lowered his eyes with perfect reluctance. "He woke up near the end," he said. "He had things he wanted to tell us." And while the pound cake sat unopened on the counter and Dad's empty bed waited in the next room, Ryan told the story again. This time it sounded smoother. He cut the parts that had made him sound defensive. Dad no longer said Ryan shouldn't let guilt ruin his life. That version might have invited questions about what Ryan felt guilty for. Instead, Dad told him he had always been proud of him, but had not known how to say it. He asked Ryan to be patient with Mom. He said I had carried too much for too long and needed to learn how to put things down. Aunt Marlene pressed a napkin to her lipstick. That sounds exactly like Walt. It did not. Dad had once driven 40 miles to return a lawnmower because the engine made what he considered a dishonest noise. He was not a man who said, "Put things down," when he could say, "Stop doing that thing with your face." Mom glanced at me, waiting. "I'm glad Ryan was there," I said. It was true, at least as far as I knew then. Aunt Marlene squeezed my arm. "And I'm glad you finally went home. Your father worried you were wearing yourself out." I looked at Mom. She found something urgent to inspect on the pound cake. Before noon, 4 more people arrived. Each brought food, and each asked the same question in a slightly different way. Was it peaceful? Did he know anyone was there? Was he afraid? Ryan answered every time. With each telling, Dad became more articulate. By the 4th, he had smiled before closing his eyes. By the 6th, he had thanked God for giving him one last night with his son. I stayed in the kitchen, labeling casserole dishes with strips of masking tape. Aunt Marlene found me writing Kevin and Linda on the bottom of a glass baking dish. You don't need to do that today. If I don't, Mom will spend the next 10 years wondering who owns this. She could ask. Then she'll spend 10 years asking. Marlene watched me press the tape flat. You heard what your father said. Apparently, everyone has. He wanted you to stop taking care of every little thing. This is a baking dish. It's what the baking dish represents. I set down the marker. What does it represent? She blinked, unprepared to defend her own sentence. I'm only saying you're allowed to grieve. Labeling Pyrex and grieving can happen in the same body. You're angry. My dad died 6 hours ago. At Ryan. The kitchen had filled with the smells of onions, coffee, and someone's perfume. From the den came the low hum of sympathetic voices. Mom was telling someone how peaceful Dad looked after death, though she had not gone near the bed once the funeral home arrived. I'm not angry that Ryan was with him. Then what? I picked up the marker again. I don't know yet. That answer seemed to satisfy her because it sounded humble. What I meant was that I did not know how much anger the room would permit me to have. At 1, we met with the funeral director. His name was Mr. Bell, which would have seemed invented if his family's name had not been painted across the building in gold letters. He wore a navy suit and spoke to Mom in a tone usually reserved for nervous animals. Mrs. Bennett, there are no wrong decisions today. Mom nodded, devastated by the number of decisions immediately placed in front of her. Burial or cremation, though Dad had already chosen burial, Thursday or Friday, morning or afternoon, which newspaper, which photograph, which flowers, which casket. Ryan sat on Mom's right. I sat on her left with Dad's folder open on my lap. Dad had written down most of what he wanted, though not because he was emotionally prepared. He simply hated paying for services he had not compared. He wanted the gray suit, I said, when Mr. Bell asked about clothing. Mom frowned. The navy. The gray. He wrote it here. He looked better in navy. He hated the navy suit. He wore it to our anniversary dinner. He called it a fabric coffin. Mr. Bell looked down at his hands. Ryan touched Mom's wrist. Let's use the navy. I stared at him. Dad specifically chose gray. Mom wants navy. It isn't Mom's suit. Mr. Bell inhaled carefully. Mom's eyes filled. I just want him to look like himself. He'll look like himself in the suit he chose. Ryan gave me a warning look. There are arguments that become monstrous only because of when they happen. 3 days earlier, disagreeing over a suit would have been ordinary. In that room, beneath recessed lights and framed photographs of flower arrangements, it felt like I was attacking a widow. The navy is fine, I said. Mom sagged against the chair. Ryan squeezed her wrist as though he had saved her. We chose Friday afternoon. Dad's friend Leonard would speak. Aunt Marlene would read a psalm. Ryan would give the eulogy. Mr. Bell looked at me. And would you like to say anything, Miss Bennett? Before I answered, Mom said, Claire doesn't like speaking in front of people. I had presented quarterly reports to rooms full of executives without losing my pulse. But in our family, I was still the woman who had refused to give a toast at Ryan's wedding because his former mother-in-law had handed me a microphone without warning. I could read something, I said. Of course, Mr. Bell replied. Ryan leaned toward me. Maybe the poem from Dad's folder? That's not a poem. It's the warranty for the cemetery plot. Mr. Bell coughed into his fist. For half a second, all 3 of us laughed, even Mom. Then the laugh collapsed, and Mom pressed a tissue to her eyes. I can't do this. You don't have to, I said. We'll finish, Ryan said at the same time. Mom turned toward him. He put his arm around her. I've got it. The words should have relieved me. Instead, they echoed his text from the previous night. Resting comfortably. I've got him. I volunteered to handle the obituary because I knew dates, spellings, and which of Dad's accomplishments he considered bragging. Ryan volunteered to write the eulogy. Mom volunteered for nothing. which was the only sensible choice any of us made. That evening, I went back to my townhouse with Dad's folder, 3 containers of food and a navy tie Mom wanted me to check against his suit. Marisol was sitting on my front step. She stood when I pulled into the driveway. She was still wearing the burgundy blouse she wore to work at a hotel downtown, though she had changed into sneakers. In one hand, she held a bottle of bourbon, in the other, toilet paper. I didn't know what grief required, she said, so I brought supplies. I got out of the car and stared at her. She opened her arms. I folded. Marisol had been my friend since we worked at the same restaurant in our 20s. She had seen me through Dad's first hospitalization, Ryan's divorce, Mom's cataract surgery, and the year I became convinced I could cut my own bangs. She was the only person who never called me strong when she meant useful. She held me in the driveway until my legs stopped shaking. Inside, she poured bourbon into coffee mugs because I had no clean glasses. I told her Dad was gone. I told her I had not been there. You said he told you to leave. He did. You said your brother was staying. He was. I looked down at the bourbon. Marisol waited. Dad apparently gave a speech. A speech. Ryan says he woke up and apologized to him. Then he said I need to stop controlling everybody. Her face remained carefully neutral. What? He said I make people feel like they can't breathe. Marisol's eyes narrowed. Walter said that? According to Ryan, the man who called me a communist because I brought store-bought mashed potatoes to Thanksgiving, he had strong views about potatoes. He had strong views about everything. He did not hide them until his deathbed. I took a drink. It burned all the way down. He'd said I hovered. You did hover. Thank you. I'm not saying it was bad. You were keeping him alive. Maybe he resented it. Probably, sometimes. People resent needing what they need. That was the first thing anyone had said that allowed Dad to be contradictory without making one of us a villain. Marisol leaned back on the couch. What else did Ryan say? I told her. When I reached the blue glass, she glanced toward my kitchen cabinet, where 3 blue tumblers sat behind the chipped coffee mugs. You said the 4th broke. It did. And your mother doesn't own those? No. What song? It Is Well With My Soul. Marisol stared at me. At your dad's 70th birthday, he called that song Religious Anesthesia. I remember. You think Ryan lied? The word lay between us. I wanted to pick it up. I wanted to throw it across the room. Instead, I shook my head. I think his father died in front of him. Memory gets weird. So does lying. He cried. Liars have tear ducts. That sounds like something Dad would say. We sat quietly. On the coffee table, my phone filled with messages. Relatives offered prayers. Neighbors offered food. And my manager told me to take all the time I needed. Ryan sent a photograph for the obituary. It showed Dad and him beside the fishing boat that sank. Dad was sunburned and laughing, one arm around Ryan's shoulders. I was not in the picture because I had taken it. He wants to use that one, I said. Marisol looked at the photograph. It's a good picture. I know. You're allowed to hate it anyway. I wrote the obituary after she left. I included Dad's 41 years as a machinist, his devotion to Mom, his bad jokes, his fishing, and his ability to repair appliances long after replacing them would have been cheaper. I wrote that he died peacefully, at home, surrounded by family. Then I deleted surrounded by family. After a minute, I put it back. The funeral home displayed the obituary the next morning. By lunch, Ryan's account had traveled beyond anyone either of us had personally told. Messages appeared beneath Dad's photograph. What a blessing that he had that final conversation with his son. Walter knew who would take care of Elaine. He held on until he could make peace. Nobody meant to exclude me. They were comforting themselves with the best part of the story. I became the part that made it noble. The daughter who had finally gone home, the devoted caregiver Dad had lovingly released, the controlling sister whose absence allowed father and son to say what needed saying. At the visitation Thursday evening, people kept hugging me and telling me I had done enough. A former co-worker of Dad's held both my hands. Your brother told us what Walt said about you." My stomach tightened. "Did he? He wanted you to have your own life. That's love." Across the room, Ryan stood beside the casket in his dark suit, receiving condolences. Dad wore navy, just as Mom wanted. The collar sat wrong against his neck. I fixed it before I could stop myself. Ryan watched me smooth the fabric. "Claire," he said quietly. "What?" "Leave something for the rest of us." He sounded almost amused, but his eyes were not. I stepped away from the casket. The next afternoon, Ryan walked to the lectern with 3 folded pages in his hand. He began with the fishing boat story. People laughed exactly where they were supposed to. Then he described Dad waking in the quiet house, reaching for his son, and using his last strength to make peace. Ryan's voice broke beautifully. When he repeated Dad's supposed words about letting the family breathe, every face in the chapel turned toward me. I felt the attention move through the room before I looked up. Some people smiled at me with soft approval. Others nodded as if Dad's final assessment had confirmed something they had always suspected. Aunt Marlene pressed a tissue beneath one eye. Mom sat rigid beside me, staring at Ryan. I had believed humiliation required an accusation. It turned out it could arrive dressed as concern. Ryan continued. "My dad knew Claire had given more than anyone should be asked to give. His last wish for her was that she stop carrying all of us and start living for herself." That was not what he had told me in the den. He had said Dad thought I needed to be needed. He had said I made people feel as if they couldn't breathe. But now Ryan had polished the criticism into a blessing. If I objected, I would appear determined to reject my father's love simply because my brother had delivered it. Ryan looked directly at me. "I intend to honor that wish," he said. The room applauded, not loudly. Funerals did not invite enthusiasm. It was a warm, scattered sound meant to support a grieving son. I kept my hands in my lap. After Ryan sat, Mr. Bell announced that I would read a short reflection. I walked to the lectern carrying the folded page I had written at 3 that morning, after realizing anything I said about Dad would now be heard as an answer to Ryan. The paper trembled. I placed it flat. My father distrusted automatic transmissions, buffet restaurants, and any appliance that required an app. A few people laughed. He could make a 20-minute trip to the hardware store last 3 hours because every employee needed to know what the store had done wrong. He believed sandwiches should be cut diagonally and apologies should be delivered while looking at the floor. More laughter. Mom's mouth moved into the shape of a smile. I talked about Dad teaching me to change a tire in freezing rain. I talked about him calling every Sunday morning to ask whether I had checked the oil in my car, even after I bought an electric one. I did not talk about medicine, sheets, oxygen, or the last word he spoke to me. Those things were mine for 4 minutes. Then I returned to my seat. Mom squeezed my hand. "That was lovely," she whispered. Ryan leaned around her. It really was. I did not know what to do with his sincerity. At the cemetery, the wind kept lifting the green cloth over the folding chairs. Dad's casket hovered above the dark rectangle in the ground, surrounded by flowers he would have called overpriced shrubbery. Mom sat between Ryan and me. When the pastor spoke about eternal rest, Ryan's shoulders began shaking. He tried to hide it by lowering his head, but the sound escaped him. Mom turned immediately and pulled him against her. I put one hand on her back to keep her steady. That was how we buried Dad. Ryan held by Mom, Mom held by me. No one held me, but Marisol stood behind my chair with 2 fingers resting lightly on my shoulder. She did not squeeze. She just made sure I knew exactly where she was. The reception took place in the church hall beneath fluorescent lights that made the potato salad look dangerous. People ate because eating gave them something to do with their mouths, besides mention death. Ryan stayed beside Mom, which I noticed because he had promised he would and because I was trying to be fair. He brought her coffee. He found her cardigan. When she froze halfway through a conversation with Dad's old supervisor, Ryan stepped in and told the story about Dad arguing with a vending machine company over a missing 75 cents. He was good with her. That should have comforted me. Instead, I watched for mistakes. I counted how long he left her alone. I noticed when he forgot she took her coffee without sugar. I hated the small, ugly part of me that wanted him to fail quickly enough to prove the old arrangement necessary. Marisol caught me watching him. "Don't," she said. "I'm not doing anything. You're managing him with your eyebrows. My eyebrows are grieving. They're issuing performance reviews." I almost laughed. Across the room, a woman I recognized from Mom's garden club took both of Ryan's hands. "Your father chose the right man," she said. Ryan's expression tightened, but he thanked her. Later, while we carried foil trays to the car, I asked him what she meant. Nothing. She said Dad chose the right man. She was talking about Mom. "You told her he asked you to take care of her?" I told everyone. "It was in the eulogy." I know what was in the eulogy. He slid a tray of baked pasta into Mom's trunk harder than necessary. Then why are we doing this? Doing what? Interrogating every person who says something nice to me. I'm not interrogating them. I'm asking you. You still don't believe me. I believe Dad died. Ryan stared at me over the open trunk. That's disgusting. I didn't mean, yes, you did. He slammed the trunk. Mom appeared behind us carrying a plastic container of cookies. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Ryan said. "Claire?" "Nothing." Mom looked between us and chose the version that required no further effort. "Your father wanted you two to be closer." Ryan's eyes met mine. "Did he say that too?" I asked. Mom flinched. I took the cookies from her and walked to the driver's side. For the next several days, people came and went from the house. I stayed with Mom at night because the silence frightened her. Ryan stayed twice, once on the couch and once in the guest room. On the third night, he said he had an early customer meeting. On the fourth, Mom told him not to worry because I was already there. He worried just enough to call at 9 and ask how we were doing. Mom spoke to him for 40 minutes. When she handed the phone to me, he said, "You don't have to keep sleeping there." She asked me to. She asks because she knows you'll say yes. "Would you like to stay tomorrow?" A pause. "I have plans." "Then thank you for your insight." I handed the phone back to Mom. She covered the receiver. "You don't have to punish him." I asked him a question. "You asked it in that voice." "What voice?" "The voice that makes a question sound like a subpoena." Ryan could forget a call and remain sensitive. I could answer one and become prosecutorial. I slept at home the next night, at 118A. Mom called because the furnace made a clicking noise. I listened over the phone and told her it was the vent contracting. "Are you sure?" "Yes, what if it's gas?" "Gas doesn't click." "How do you know?" "Because Dad taught me." She was quiet. "I miss him," she said. The annoyance went out of me. "I know. I keep thinking he's going to yell from the den that the television is too loud. I know. Ryan says I should move the television upstairs." "Do you want it upstairs?" "I don't know." "Then leave it where it is." She sighed. "Your father said you'd do that." "Do what?" "Decide." "I didn't decide. I told you not to decide tonight." "Ryan thinks the den should become a room I can use. It is a room you can use. You know what I mean." I closed my eyes. The den still held the hospital bed, waiting for the equipment company to collect it. Dad's recliner sat pushed against the wall. His foam mouth swabs were on the shelf beside old spy novels. Nothing in that room knew what it was supposed to become. "Sleep," I said. "We'll talk tomorrow." "Claire?" "What? You really did do too much." The words were tender. That made them worse. The equipment company collected the bed 2 days later. Ryan said he would be there, but a client had changed a meeting. I stayed. When the bed was rolled out, 4 dents remained in the carpet. The worker handed me a clipboard, and I signed where Dad's name had been printed. Mom stood in the doorway. "It looks so empty. We can move the recliner back. Ryan thinks I should get rid of it." "What do you think?" "I don't know." "Then don't get rid of it. There you go again." I set the clipboard down. "Doing what?" taking over. You asked me. I said it looked empty. I suggested moving a chair. Mom pressed her lips together. Your father saw things clearly at the end. I walked outside before I said something permanent. The story followed us into every ordinary decision. When I suggested Mom use the pill organizer because she had taken her blood pressure medication twice, she said Ryan thought I was making her feel incapable. When the refrigerator began leaking, she called me, then apologized for calling because Dad had wanted me to have my own life. I drove over and found a thawing bag of peas blocking the drain. When Ryan forgot to bring groceries, Mom said he had been emotionally exhausted since holding Dad while he died. I bought the groceries and left them on the kitchen counter without staying for coffee. Each time I helped, I proved Dad had understood me. Each time I refused, I proved I was angry that he had. Ryan stopped mentioning the blue glass or the hymn. He no longer needed details. The family remembered the shape of the story, and the shape favored him. 3 weeks after the funeral, Mom asked if I thought she should join a grief group. Yes, Ryan says I shouldn't force it. Going once isn't forcing it. He thinks we should handle this as a family. Then he can come too. He works. So do I. She looked wounded. I signed her up anyway, then canceled the registration 10 minutes later because I heard Dad's invented voice in my head. Stop managing everybody. I hated Ryan most when his lie sounded reasonable. I hated Dad a little for making it plausible. 6 weeks after the funeral, Mom decided the den needed to be cleared before she could choose what to do with it. Ryan offered to come Sunday. On Sunday morning, he texted that he had food poisoning. Do you think he's really sick? Mom asked. I think he says he's sick. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have. We worked without him. Mom folded Dad's blankets and stopped to smell each one. I boxed the oxygen supplies. We left the recliner where it was because neither of us could move it and because Mom still hadn't decided whether indecision counted as control. The bedside table had remained near the wall after the hospital bed was taken. Dad's brass bell sat beside the saline spray. Beneath them was the cordless phone, coated with dust. I thought we returned that, Mom said. It's ours. I mean the phone company. You don't return cordless phones to the phone company. Then why do they charge so much? I carried it toward the kitchen to disconnect the base. The screen lit when I pressed the call button. Dad's last calls appeared in a list. At first, I only saw dates. Then I saw Ryan's number. Outgoing. 12:47 a.m. 38 seconds. Behind me, Mom stopped folding the blanket. I looked at the time again. Dad had supposedly died 6 minutes earlier. What? Mom asked. Her voice told me she already knew the answer mattered. I turned the phone so she could see the screen. What happened at 12:47? Mom did not move closer. What do you mean? Dad called Ryan. That can't be right. Then come look. I can see it from here. No, you can see a phone from there. Come read the time. She folded the blanket she was holding. Although it was already folded, she pressed one edge against the other with great care and placed it on the recliner. Those old things keep strange records. It's 6 weeks old, not a sundial. You know what I mean. I scrolled backward. There were calls to the hospice pharmacy, the funeral home, Aunt Marlene, and me. I stopped at the evening before Dad died. At 10:04, Mom's call to my cell appeared on the screen. I took out my phone and found the same call in my history. Both said 10:04. The time is right. Mom began gathering saline bottles from the table. Maybe your father pressed something. He supposedly died at 12:41. You don't know the exact minute someone dies. Ryan knew it exactly. He looked at the clock. Before or after Dad made a phone call, she shoved 3 bottles into the box hard enough to make them clatter. I am not doing this. Doing what, whatever this is? An investigation, a trial. I asked one question. You never ask one question. The words had Ryan's rhythm. I set the phone on the kitchen counter. Did Dad call him? How would I know? I was upstairs. You were in the house. I was asleep. Then how did you know he died at 12:41? Ryan told me. When? After. After what? After your father died. The answer circled itself so neatly that I almost admired it. Mom reached for the phone. I put my hand over it. What are you doing? Disconnecting it. I'm not finished. What else could it possibly tell you? Her voice rose on the last word. I studied her face. She looked older than she had that morning, the skin beneath her eyes loose and gray. For 6 weeks, I had interpreted every strain in her expression as grief. Now I wondered how much work it took to hold a story in place. Why are you scared? I asked. I'm not scared. You look scared. My husband died in that room. My daughter is standing in my kitchen trying to turn the phone into a witness. I don't know what you want from me. The truth. You have the truth. No. I have Ryan's memory. He was there. Was he? Mom slapped one palm against the counter. Stop it. The sound startled both of us. She looked toward the den, as though Dad might object to the noise. I picked up the phone again. I'm calling him. No, that came too fast. Mom took a breath. I mean, don't ambush him. He has suffered enough. So have I. This isn't about suffering more. It became about that the second everyone decided his story mattered more than my questions. He held your father while he died. Then he can explain how Dad called him 6 minutes later. I dialed Ryan's number from my cell before Mom could argue again. He answered on the 4th ring. Hey, did you guys conquer the den? Not yet. Sorry about today. I'm finally keeping toast down. He sounded healthy enough to advertise breakfast. Do you remember Dad using the bedside phone that last night? Silence. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds. Still, I heard it. What? The cordless phone. Did Dad use it? I don't know. You said you were beside him. I was. That doesn't mean I cataloged everything he touched. He called your cell at 12:47. Mom turned away and walked into the den. Ryan did not speak. Are you there? Yeah. Why did Dad call you? He didn't. The call history says he did. Then he must have hit a button. Which button? How would I know? The phone called your specific number. Maybe mine was the last number dialed. It wasn't. Mom called me at 10. Then maybe Dad selected my name. He was confused. You said he was completely clear. Ryan exhaled into the phone. Do you hear yourself? I hear myself asking how a dead man called you. He wasn't dead. I gripped the edge of the counter. What? I mean, the time might not have been exact. Maybe it was 12:47 when he died. You told me 12:41. I looked at the clock after. It was a horrible night, Claire. I'm sorry if my timekeeping fails your standards. How long after did you look? I don't know. Where were you when the phone called? In the room. Then did your cell ring? It's always on silent. You didn't see Dad pick up the phone? I might have been getting water. In the kitchen. Yes. Which is it? Were you in the room or getting water? I was with him all night. I went to the kitchen. I went to the bathroom. I'm sure I blinked a few times too. Do you need a map? What happened during those 38 seconds? What 38 seconds? That's how long the call lasted. Another silence. Voicemail, he said. It must have gone to voicemail. Did Dad leave one? No. You checked? I don't remember. You remember a complete speech, a glass of water, a hymn, a hand squeeze, and the minute he died. But you don't remember whether our dying father left you his last voicemail? His voice dropped. What do you want, Claire? I want it to make sense. No, you want to catch me doing something wrong. Were you there? Go to hell. He ended the call. I stood in the kitchen listening to the deadline. Mom returned carrying the box of oxygen supplies. Are you satisfied? No. You called him a liar. I asked if he was there. Same thing. It shouldn't be. She set the box on the floor. Your brother panicked when that phone rang just now. Did you consider that? You dragged him back into the worst night of his life because an old clock gave you an excuse. The clock is accurate. You don't know that. I reset it after the power went out. Mom's eyes flickered. The storm in May, I said. You called because the microwave was blinking. I reset every clock in the house. That doesn't mean it stayed right. It matches my phone. So it's 6 minutes. 6 minutes, Claire. Maybe your father died at 12:47. Maybe Ryan remembered wrong. Then why didn't he say that first? Because you cornered him. He's 42. He can survive a question. Not everyone is made like you. There it was again. Ryan's fear required protection. Mine required endurance. I put the cordless phone in my bag. Mom saw me. Why are you taking that? Because you were about to disconnect it. It belongs in the house. You were about to throw it away. I was not. You reached for it. To turn it off. I'm taking it. The expression on her face made the phone feel suddenly more important than it was. It was not proof of what happened. It proved only that a call had been placed. Dad could have hit buttons. Ryan's timeline could be wrong. Grief could turn 6 minutes into a conspiracy if I needed it badly enough. I left before Mom could tell me which version of myself the decision confirmed. At home, I put the phone on my kitchen table and stared at it while eating cold-baked pasta from Kevin and Linda's dish. I called my voicemail and timed how long it took to reach the greeting. 26 seconds. If Dad's call lasted 38, he could have heard Ryan's greeting and left a few seconds of silence, or breath, or words Ryan had deleted. That thought made me feel sick. I called Marisol. She listened without interrupting, which was rarely her style. When I finished, she said, "What answer are you hoping for?" That Dad didn't say those things about me. That isn't what the phone can tell you. I know. Do you? I pushed the pasta away. If Ryan wasn't there, the whole story is a lie. Or part of it. If Dad called him, he wasn't beside the bed. Probably not. So Ryan lied. Probably. You're being very irritating. I'm trying to keep you from deciding exactly what happened before you know. I looked at the cordless phone. What do I do? Find out whether he left. How? Marisol was quiet. Then she said, "Don't you return casserole dishes to neighbors like a normal, grieving family?" Mrs. Kovach lived across the street from Mom and Dad. She was 70, widowed, and possessed the sleeping habits of an airport. She had brought chicken tetrazzini the morning Dad died in a rectangular dish painted with lemons. I returned it the next afternoon. She invited me in for coffee, but I said I only had a minute. Her house smelled like cinnamon and the menthol cigarettes she claimed she had quit. "I wanted to ask you something strange," I said. Strange is the only interesting kind. "The night Dad died, did Ryan's truck bother you?" Her expression changed. Bother me how? Headlights, engine noise, anything. She adjusted the belt of her cardigan. "I don't want to get between family." "You're not. That sentence has never been true." I held the lemon dish against my stomach. I'm trying to understand the timing. Mrs. Kovach looked through her front window toward Mom's house. "I saw him leave," she said. The room went very quiet. "What time?" "Before midnight. 11:30 maybe. I was outside with a cigarette. I was not smoking." "When did he come back?" "After 1. The news had just started its second repeat. "You're sure it was Ryan? That truck needs a new muffler. I can identify it from another county." I thanked her and left before the coffee could be offered again. Mom was standing in her driveway. Mrs. Kovach must have called the moment I crossed the street. Mom waited until I reached the sidewalk. "You questioned my neighbor." I returned her dish. "Don't insult me. Then don't ask questions you know the answers to." Her face hardened. "You are not going to tear this family apart because Ryan stepped outside for a few minutes." I stopped. I had never told her he stepped outside. I had only asked whether he was there. Mom realized her mistake as soon as I did. Her eyes shifted toward Mrs. Kovach's window. The curtain moved, then became very still. "How did you know he stepped outside?" I asked. I assumed. "No, you didn't. Anyone might step outside during a long night. You said it like a fact. I said it because you're behaving as though he drove to another state. He left at 11:30 and came back after 1. Mom's mouth tightened. "That woman watches the street like she's being paid. Was she wrong?" It was dark. "Was she wrong?" I wasn't checking the time. "You said you were asleep." I was. Then how do you know he went outside? She folded her arms. Ryan may have mentioned getting air. When? I don't know. After? Before or after he told you Dad died at 12:41? The front door across the street opened 2 inches. Mrs. Kovach's cigarette smoke escaped before she did. Mom lowered her voice. I will not have this conversation in the driveway. Great. Let's go inside. I don't want you in my house when you're like this. When I'm asking what happened, when you're looking for someone to punish. I had seen Mom angry. I had seen her throw a wooden spoon at Dad because he called her gravy glue. I had seen her stop speaking to Aunt Marlene for 4 months over a disputed Thanksgiving centerpiece. This was different. Her anger was working. It was lifting boxes, blocking doors, redirecting traffic. Did you know Ryan left Dad alone? I asked. He was not alone. I was upstairs. You were asleep. I was in the house. Dad couldn't walk to the bathroom. Your father told Ryan to go. That stopped me. Mom's face changed again. He told him? I don't know. You just said he did. I'm saying it's possible. Walt could be impossible when he was sick. You know that better than anyone. Did Ryan tell you Dad sent him away? She rubbed both hands over her arms, though the afternoon was warm. You need to go home. I need you to answer me. I am your mother. I'm aware. You don't speak to me like this. What tone should I use when you're defending a lie about Dad's death? Her eyes filled instantly. You think I don't know he's dead? That's not what I said. You think I haven't replayed that night every time I close my eyes? Then tell me what you see. She looked at me for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. I see my family tearing itself apart because you can't let one question go. That isn't an answer. It is the only one you're getting. She walked into the house and locked the door behind her. I stood on the driveway with the lemon dish no longer in my hands, and no idea when Mrs. Kovach had taken it from me. Across the street, she raised it slightly. I washed it twice. I called. I know. I drove to Ryan's condo. He lived 20 minutes away in a development where every building was painted one of 3 approved shades of beige. His truck was parked in front. The hood made a faint ticking noise when I stepped past it. He had driven recently. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Ryan, I can see your truck. The door opened. He wore gray sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. His hair stood up on one side. He looked pale, but not food poisoning pale. More like a man who had been sitting in a dark room watching his phone ring. What are you doing here? Mom knows. He blinked. Knows what? That you left. His hand tightened around the door. She told you that? No. Mrs. Kovach saw your truck. Of course she did. You left Dad alone. Mom was upstairs, asleep. He looked over my shoulder toward the parking lot. Can we not do this outside? I almost laughed at the family resemblance. Ryan stepped back. His condo was cleaner than I expected and emptier than I remembered. Flooring samples leaned against one wall beneath a framed photograph of Dad holding the fish Ryan had actually caught on one of their trips. A blanket and pillow lay on the couch. On the coffee table sat a sleeve of crackers, 2 empty cans of ginger ale, and a half-eaten bowl of soup. You really are sick, I said. Thank you for your concern. Food poisoning, stress, and a gas station burrito. Pick one. I set the cordless phone on the coffee table. Ryan stared at it. You brought it? I thought it might help your memory. That's dramatic, even for you. You told everyone Dad died holding your hand. He sat on the couch. I was with him, not at 12:47. I came back. After 1. His eyes closed. Mrs. Kovach keeps exact minutes now. She heard you leave around 11:30. You woke her up when you came back. I didn't know I needed to file a travel plan. Where did you go? Out. Where? Why does it matter? Because Dad called you. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You think I don't know that? The anger went out of me so fast I had to sit in the chair across from him. You saw the call. Ryan looked at the phone between us. My cell was in the cup holder. It lit up with his name. Why didn't you answer? He pressed both hands together until the knuckles whitened. I couldn't. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have. He laughed once bitterly. Funny how that works. I waited. Ryan stared past me at the flooring samples. His breathing got worse after you left, he said. Not right away. For a while, he slept. Then he started making this sound. What sound? I don't know. Like he was trying to cough, but didn't have enough air. You had the hospice number. I called. You did? I talked to a nurse. She said to give him the medication you had ready. Did you? Yes. His voice cracked with offense. I did everything you told me. I gave him the medicine. I used those little sponge things. I raised the bed. I sat there and told him stupid stories because silence felt worse. I pictured Ryan beside Dad, reading my instructions under the lamp. The image hurt because it was probably true. He kept looking at me, Ryan said. He could still see. That's not what I mean. He was looking at me like he knew. Knew what? That I was afraid. Ryan swallowed. I asked if he wanted me to get Mom. He said no. I asked if he wanted you. He said sleep. The last word struck me harder the second time. Did he say anything else about me? Ryan shook his head. Not then. Did he ever say I made people feel like they couldn't breathe? He said you fussed. When? I don't know. Months ago. Years ago. Dad complained about everybody. That isn't what you told us. I know. The room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. What happened? I asked. Ryan rubbed his face. I couldn't watch it. So you left. I stepped outside. You drove away. I was going around the block. For an hour and a half? I kept driving. His shame was not dramatic. It made him smaller. He hunched over his hands like a man trying to keep himself from taking up space. Dad grabbed my wrist, he said. He was stronger than he looked. He said, go if you need to. And you did. I thought I had time. You knew he was dying. I knew he'd been dying for months. Every bad night was supposed to be the night. You kept telling us to be prepared, and then morning came. Not that morning. No. He looked at me. I got in the truck. I drove to the highway. Then I pulled into the diner parking lot by the overpass. The one that's open all night? Yeah. Did you go inside? No. I sat there. Doing what? Nothing. Yelling. Crying. Being exactly the person Dad thought I was. His phone had lit up at 12:47. What did his voicemail say? Ryan's jaw moved. Ryan. 9 seconds of room noise. Then him saying, "You coming back, son?" I covered my mouth. I deleted it. Why? Because I listened to it 30 times in 2 days. That wasn't yours to delete. It was on my phone. It was Dad's last message. To me. About you abandoning him. Ryan stood. Do you think I don't know what I did? I think you made sure nobody else knew. I went back. After he called. I went back as soon as I heard the voicemail. Why didn't you answer? I told you I couldn't. Because he might ask you to come back? Because he might die while I was on the phone. His voice broke across the room. Ryan turned away. For one ugly second, I understood. I had spent months managing Dad's decline because tasks gave fear a uniform. If I could measure medication and tape tubing to the floor, I did not have to sit beside the fact that my father was disappearing. Ryan had no tasks. He had only the disappearing. Understanding him did not make the lies smaller. What did you find when you came back? He stared out the window. Mom was upstairs. The television was still on. Dad looked like he was sleeping. You checked? I touched him. I called his name. I tried to find a pulse, but I didn't know what I was doing. Why didn't you call hospice? I did, eventually. Eventually? I panicked. What did you do first? Ryan turned around. I sat down and held his hand. The image from the eulogy returned, altered but not entirely erased. He had held Dad's hand, just after it could matter. How long? I don't know. Until 12:41? He flinched. No. Where did that time come from? The kitchen clock said 1:14 when Mom came down. I stood. Mom came down. She saw my headlights from upstairs. She thought something had happened. Something had. I told her Dad was gone. And then she started crying. She said we should call you. I said I couldn't tell you I'd left. So you invented a death time. I said I thought it happened around 12:40. Why 41? Mom looked at the clock beside his bed. It had stopped. The small digital clock had a loose power cord. It froze whenever someone moved the table. And the speech? Ryan's face twisted. I needed there to be something between us besides him asking if I was coming back. So you gave yourself forgiveness. Yes. And me? He looked at the floor. If Dad wanted you to rest, then you weren't supposed to be there. I already knew that. Other people wouldn't. You made me the reason you had to stay. I was angry at you. For what? For making it look easy. For leaving me one night and expecting me to be you. I expected you to call me. I know. I moved toward the door. Behind me, Ryan said, Mom helped me. My hand stopped on the knob. With what? The time. The story. All of it. I turned around. Ryan looked exhausted. She knew before we called you, he said. She knew I wasn't there. How much of it was hers? I asked. Ryan shook his head. I don't know. That's not possible. I wasn't taking minutes. Did she tell you to lie? He looked toward the window again. She told me nobody needed to know I'd gone for a drive. That's yes. She wasn't thinking clearly. Were either of you? No. Then how did you produce such a detailed story? Ryan sank back onto the couch. Mom asked what Dad said before I left. I told her he said you should sleep and that I could go if I needed to. Then what? She said maybe that was what he wanted. Maybe he wanted us to stop depending on you. So she wrote my part. No, I did. His honesty had arrived too late to feel virtuous, but I let him continue. I said Dad told me I could take care of things. Mom said that sounded like him. It doesn't. I know. Did she know about the apology? She knew what I was going to say before we called you. And the part about me making people feel like they couldn't breathe? He rubbed his thumb over a crack in the coffee table. I didn't say that in front of Mom. You said it in front of Dad's body. I was angry. At me. At everything. Only one of those things could hear you. Ryan's eyes filled, but I had run out of respect for tears as evidence. When Mom came downstairs, he said, she kept saying Dad shouldn't have been alone. She said she was 10 feet above him and didn't know. So you gave her a version where someone was there? Yes. And she gave you a version where you didn't leave? Yes. And together you gave me a dead father who resented the way I cared for him. His mouth tightened. I'm sorry. The apology was small, not insincere, just nowhere near large enough. I picked up the cordless phone. Are you going to tell everyone? Tell them what? The truth. Ryan stared at me as if the question had no practical application. What would that accomplish? For you? For anyone? Dad is still dead. Mom still has to live in that house. You gave a eulogy about it. I know. People thanked you for it. I know. They looked at me like Dad's last message was a restraining order. I didn't know they'd do that. You told them to. I said you did too much. You said Dad chose you to take care of Mom. He did ask me to. No, he didn't. Ryan looked away. I moved toward the door again. Claire. What? Don't go after Mom. The words were so absurd that I turned. Go after her. She lost Dad. So did I. She feels guilty. So do I. You don't have a reason to. Neither did she until the two of you manufactured one for me. He stood. She thought you could handle it. There it was. The family motto. I opened the door. Ryan followed me onto the small concrete step. I'll tell people, he said. I looked back. His face was pale, his arms folded tight across his stomach. I will. Just give me a little time. You've had 6 weeks. I mean, to figure out how. You figured out the lie in less than an hour. I drove to Mom's house with the cordless phone on the passenger seat. Her front door was still locked. I used my key. She was in the kitchen peeling the masking tape from the bottom of Kevin and Linda's baking dish. She had the edge lifted and was scraping at it with one fingernail. "You talked to him," she said. I placed the phone on the table. Ryan told me everything. Mom kept scraping. His version. Is there another? There is always another version. Did Dad die alone? Her fingernail tore through the tape. She sat down. I was upstairs. That isn't what I asked. I could have been down in seconds if he called. He called Ryan. Her face crumpled. I didn't hear the phone. I know. I was so tired. I had taken one of those sleeping pills the doctor gave me. I shouldn't have. You were allowed to sleep. So was your brother. He didn't sleep. He drove away. Your father told him to go. He said go if you need to. That isn't the same as drive to a diner and ignore my call. Mom flinched at the word, my. Ryan told you about the message? 9 seconds. Dad asking if he was coming back. She covered her eyes. For a while, neither of us spoke. The refrigerator kicked on. A car passed outside. Dad's wind chimes rattled near the back door, even though he had complained for 20 years that wind chimes turned weather into noise. When Ryan came back, Mom said, "His headlights woke me. I went downstairs because I thought he was leaving. Instead, he had just returned." She nodded behind her hands. He was kneeling beside the bed. Your father was gone. What did Ryan say? He said he couldn't do it. He said he tried, but he couldn't sit there and watch. And you decided no one should know. I did not decide anything. My husband was dead. You decided to wait before calling me. Mom lowered her hands. Ryan was hysterical. So was I when you finally called. He kept saying you would hate him. Did you tell him I wouldn't? No. At least that was honest. What did you tell him? I said we needed to calm down. I said there was no reason to make his leaving the only thing anyone remembered. So you changed the time. Your father didn't have a clock inside him, Claire. We didn't know when he died. You knew it wasn't while Ryan held his hand. He did hold his hand. After. Her chin trembled. Does that make his grief fake? No. It makes the story fake. Stories are not police reports. This one became Dad's last word on all of us. Mom looked toward the den. Ryan needed something good from that night. The sentence landed with almost no force, maybe because I had been hearing it my whole life in different forms. Ryan needed encouragement. Ryan needed another chance. Ryan needed Dad to stop criticizing him. Ryan needed a good memory of the night he left Dad dying alone. What did I need? I asked. Mom looked at me. I thought you needed permission to stop. From a lie? From your father. Dad didn't say it. He worried about you. He worried while letting me do everything. That is not fair. It is exactly fair. He relied on me because I was useful, and he waited for Ryan because Ryan was special. Your father loved you both differently. Differently is the word people use when equally would be dishonest. Mom stood so quickly her chair tipped backward. I will not let you rewrite your entire childhood because you're hurt. You rewrote Dad's last night before his body was cold. Her palm lifted. For a second, I thought she might slap me. She did not. She gripped the edge of the table instead. I had just lost my husband. Ryan was on the floor saying he couldn't live with what he'd done. I thought I was going to lose him too. Lose him how? He would have left. You know what he does when he's ashamed? He disappears. So you protected him? Yes. The word came out hard. Mom breathed once, then said it again. Yes, I protected my son, and you used me to do it. I knew you would survive. That isn't the same as not being hurt. You always survive. Because you keep practicing on me. Her face twisted. That's cruel. So was letting an entire funeral believe Dad spent his last breath criticizing me. It wasn't criticism. He said I made people feel like they couldn't breathe. Ryan should not have said that, but you let him repeat the rest. I was trying to turn something terrible into something bearable. For who? For all of us. No, For you and Ryan. I was already bearable. Mom's shoulders dropped. That's not what I meant. It's what you counted on. I picked up her chair and set it upright. My body kept performing useful little acts without consulting me. Mom watched. What are you going to do? The question held more fear than anything she had said about the lie. I knew what she was asking. Was I going to tell Aunt Marlene? Call Dad's friends? Correct the obituary comments one by one? March into church and demand that everyone return the sympathy they had given Ryan? I don't know. Please don't humiliate him. I laughed. The sound frightened her. Still him. I'm asking you to think before you damage relationships that can't be repaired. Like my relationship with Dad? He's gone. Exactly. I can't ask him what was true. I can't hear his real last thoughts because Ryan replaced them and you helped. His last thoughts might not have been words. Then you should have left them alone. Mom sat again. What do you want from me? I want you to stop using the lie. She looked confused. How? No more telling people Dad chose Ryan to take care of you. No more quoting Dad when I disagree with you. No more turning every favor I do into proof that he diagnosed me correctly. Her expression stiffened. So this is about the errands. It's about all of it. I never forced you to help me? No. You make needing me sound accidental and resenting me sound reasonable. I don't resent you. You resent that I notice. The kitchen phone rang. We both looked at it. Mom made no move to answer, so the machine picked up. Ryan's voice filled the room. Mom, call me. Claire left here upset. Mom reached for the receiver. I took my house key from my ring and placed it beside the cordless phone. She froze. What is that? Your spare key. You need that. No, you need me to have it. For emergencies. Ryan can have one. Her fingers closed around the key. You're punishing me. I'm changing what I'm available for. That means the same thing. It only feels the same because my availability protected you from consequences. The answering machine clicked off. Mom stared at the key in her palm. What am I supposed to do now? Call the person Dad supposedly chose? That isn't fair. Neither was making me earn my place by being useful. You are my daughter. Then visit with me. Have coffee with me. Ask how I am. But I'm not sleeping here because the furnace clicks. I'm not managing Ryan's promises. I'm not making every decision so you can accuse me of deciding. Mom began to cry. I wanted to comfort her. The impulse was so strong I took one step forward before stopping myself. I love you, I said. She looked up, tears shining on her cheeks. If you loved me, you wouldn't leave like this. No, if I didn't love you, this would be easy. I walked out while the kitchen phone started ringing again. The calls followed me home. Ryan called twice. Mom called once. Aunt Marlene called before I had even taken off my coat, which meant Mom had either reached her or Ryan had activated whatever emergency network our family used whenever I became inconvenient. I silenced the phone and set it face down on the kitchen counter. Then I stood there, with both hands braced against the edge, waiting for the feeling people described as relief when they finally established a boundary. What arrived instead was nausea. I had left my mother crying in the kitchen where Dad used to drink coffee. I had taken away the spare key she believed meant I would come if she needed me. I had done it 6 weeks after her husband died. Every fact could be arranged to make me look monstrous. My phone buzzed again. Ryan, call me. Ryan, she can't stop crying. Ryan, whatever you're trying to prove, you've proved it. I typed, I'm not trying to prove anything. I deleted it. I typed, you're with her now. Take care of her. I deleted that too. The problem with explaining a boundary to people who benefited from its absence was that every explanation sounded like the beginning of a negotiation. I went upstairs, changed into pajamas, and sat on the edge of my bed. Dad's final voice returned from the dark. Sleep. I had spent 6 weeks letting Ryan add words after it. Now that I knew those words were false, the single real one should have felt clean. Instead, I wondered if Dad had been dismissing me, protecting me, releasing me, choosing Ryan, settling for Ryan. Maybe he had said sleep because it was the only word he could manage. The dead did not clarify. At 9, someone knocked. I assumed Ryan had come to fight, so I opened the door already angry. Marisol held up a paper bag. I brought tacos and a neutral facial expression. Who called you? No one. It's Wednesday. I stared at her. Our standing dinner. I had forgotten it for the 7th week in a row. You remembered, I said. I always remember. Usually I eat yours on Thursday. She stepped inside and studied my face. What happened? I told her while she arranged tacos on plates and removed the cilantro from mine because she knew I considered it an aggressive herb. When I reached the part about leaving my key, Marisol stopped unwrapping sauce containers. Do you want me to tell you it was the right thing? Yes, I can't. My throat tightened. She continued, I can tell you it was a thing you needed to do. Those aren't always the same. That's not comforting. I brought tacos. I already contributed comfort. We ate at my kitchen table with Dad's cordless phone between us. Marisol tapped one finger beside it. What are you going to do with this? Nothing. Good. You sound surprised. I was picturing a very grim family newsletter. I'm not exposing them. Why not? Because I don't want Dad's death to become a vote. Half the family would forgive Ryan. The other half would treat me like I'd won. Mom would be humiliated. Ryan would be ruined for 3 months, and I would still never know what Dad thought before he died. So what do you want? I want them to stop making me live according to words he didn't say. Marisol nodded. That sounds expensive for them. She was right. The cost appeared the next morning. Mom called at 7:12 because she could not find her blood pressure medicine. It's in the kitchen cabinet, second shelf, left side. It isn't. It was on Monday. Ryan moved things. Ask Ryan. He's in the shower. I sat up. He stayed there? He didn't want me alone. The small stab of jealousy surprised me. Ryan had stayed one night, and some childish part of me resented that Mom would remember his presence more vividly than all of mine. Then wait until he gets out. I need to take it with food. 10 minutes won't hurt. You would know where it is. I told you where I left it. Claire, what? I don't understand why you're doing this. I'm not refusing to tell you. I told you. You know I'm upset. I know. Your father would hate this. The sentence slipped out before she could stop it. I closed my eyes. Dad doesn't get another opinion. Mom went silent. Then she hung up. At 8, Ryan sent a photograph of the pill bottle on the kitchen counter beside the toaster. Ryan, you put it here. I enlarged the picture. The bottle was inside a paper pharmacy bag with a receipt dated 2 days after my last visit. Me. I didn't pick up that refill. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Ryan. Fine. It was the first time in my life that fine sounded like a small structural collapse. Aunt Marlene called that afternoon. Your mother says you gave back your key. Yes. Why? Did she tell you? She said you're angry about your father's last night. That's accurate. She did not give details. Then you should ask her. She's fragile. So am I. You don't sound fragile. What does fragile sound like? Marlene sighed. I don't want to get in the middle. You called me from the middle. I'm trying to keep this family together. That position is available. Apparently Dad assigned it to Ryan. She did not like that. Your brother is grieving too. I know. He told us what happened because he wanted to comfort us. You should ask him if it happened. Silence. I felt the temptation to tell her. One sentence would do it. Ryan left. Dad called him. Mom knew. Instead, I said, I'm not discussing this unless Mom and Ryan are willing to. That sounds like an ultimatum. It's privacy. When you keep family secrets, they become poison. Then talk to the people who created one. I ended the call before she could turn my restraint into another flaw. For the first week, Mom and Ryan treated my withdrawal as a temporary tantrum. They waited for the old machinery to restart. Ryan texted questions he could answer himself. What company services the furnace? Where does Mom keep extra checks? Which grocery store has the yogurt she likes? I answered the first. I told him to ask Mom about the checks. For the yogurt, I sent a photograph from the grocery store's website. He replied with a thumbs up that looked hostile. Mom called me every evening. Our conversations became contests over what counted as being her daughter. She told me which neighbor had visited. I told her about work. She asked if I remembered when the recycling went out. I said Ryan could check the schedule online. She asked whether I was coming Sunday. I said I would come for coffee but would not spend the afternoon sorting Dad's clothes unless she wanted to sort them with me. "What's the difference?" she asked. "One is visiting. One is a job. Families help." "Yes, but only on your terms now." "Yes." She sounded shocked by the answer. On Sunday, I brought pastries and stayed 90 minutes. Mom had set 6 tasks around the house like traps. A burned-out bulb rested on the kitchen counter. An envelope from the insurance company sat unopened by my chair. A laundry basket blocked the hallway. Dad's recliner had been pulled halfway across the den and abandoned. I stepped around all of them. We drank coffee. Mom talked about Dad's habit of hiding cash in old birthday cards because he did not trust wallets. I told her about the time he gave me a card containing $11 and a receipt from a hardware store. She laughed. For 12 minutes, we were mother and daughter. Then she looked at the bulb. "The hallway is very dark," I noticed. "I could fall." "Ryan's coming at 2. Ask him to change it. He's bringing groceries. Light bulbs and groceries can happen on the same day. You could do it in 30 seconds. "I could." Her face tightened. "You're enjoying this." "No. You're watching me struggle. I'm watching you wait for me to stop meaning what I said." She set down her cup. "Your brother has been here 4 nights. Good. He has work. So do I. He isn't good at this. Neither was I until everyone kept making me do it." Mom stared toward the den. "You always knew how." "No. I learned where you keep the flashlight because Dad yelled at me during a power outage. I learned your medications because you handed me the bottles. I learned how to call the furnace company because no one else would. You make love sound like labor. Sometimes it is. And now you're billing us? I'm asking you to notice who has been paying." Ryan arrived 20 minutes early carrying the wrong yogurt and no light bulbs. He found us sitting in silence. "What happened?" "Nothing," Mom said. "She wants the hallway bulb changed," I said. Ryan looked at the bulb on the counter. "Okay, it's the fixture over the stairs." He glanced toward the hallway. "Do you have a ladder?" "In the garage," Mom said. "Where?" She looked at me. I drank my coffee. Ryan found the ladder 11 minutes later. He changed the bulb, opened the insurance envelope, carried the laundry basket upstairs, and pushed Dad's recliner back against the wall. Mom praised him after each task with such force that it became embarrassing. When I put on my coat, Ryan followed me outside. "What the hell are you doing?" "Leaving." "You know what I mean." "I told Mom I'd come for coffee. You sat there while she asked you for help. You helped her. I have to drive 40 minutes round trip, 20 each way. I know how round trips work. Congratulations." He stepped closer. "She calls me constantly. I know." "She called at 3 this morning because she heard something in the garage." "What was it?" "A rake fell over." "I'm sorry." "You don't sound sorry." "I'm sorry you were woken up. I'm not sorry you answered." Ryan shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. "I said I'd take care of her because I felt guilty. I didn't mean every minute of every day. Neither did I. You're using Mom to punish me. Mom is an adult. She isn't an object I'm handing you. She can't handle this right now. Then sit with her. Listen to her. Take her to the grief group. She doesn't want a grief group. She told me she did. She changed her mind. After you told her family should handle it." Ryan looked away. "That's what Dad would have wanted." We both heard it. His face went still. "Don't," I said. "I didn't mean, yes, you did. You're still using him." "I knew Dad. So did I." "Then you know he hated strangers knowing his business. He also hated that hymn you claimed he died listening to." Ryan's cheeks flushed. I said, "I'll tell people." "When?" I don't know. Before or after they finish praising you. He kicked at a crack in the driveway. I'm trying, Claire. No. You're waiting for the truth to become too awkward to mention. I walked to my car. Ryan called after me. What happens if I tell them? Do you come back? I stopped with my hand on the door. There it was, beneath everything else. He did not want truth. He wanted the old arrangement restored at a price he hoped confession might pay. No, I said. His face fell. Then why should I destroy Mom for nothing? Because the truth is not a favor you do for me. I got into my car. That night, Mom called at 11:43. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was weak. I'm dizzy. I sat up immediately. Are you having chest pain? No. Trouble breathing? A little. Is your face numb? Can you lift both arms? Yes. Claire, I'm scared. This was not a furnace click or a fallen rake. I'm coming, I said. My body was already moving before the words finished. Then I stopped beside the front door. Call Ryan too, I said. I want you. I'm coming. Call him anyway. When I reached the house, Ryan's truck pulled in behind me. For the first time, neither of us arrived as the other's replacement. Mom was sitting on the couch with one hand pressed to her chest. She wore Dad's old brown cardigan over her nightgown. The sleeves hung past her fingers. Her face looked pale beneath the lamp, but not gray. Her mouth was even. Both arms lifted when I asked. Ryan came through the front door carrying his phone and one shoe. I couldn't find the other one, he said breathlessly. Mom stared at his sock. Under any other circumstances, Dad would have made the lack of footwear the main event. I crouched in front of Mom. When did the dizziness start? After I got out of bed. Did you eat dinner? I had soup. What kind? She frowned. Does it matter? It matters whether you mean soup or 2 spoonfuls of broth. Ryan found the blood pressure cuff in the cabinet without asking me where it was. He handed it over, then hovered close enough to identify my fillings. 152/94, I said. That's high, he said. She's upset. So high is okay now? No, it means we take it again after she sits quietly. I was sitting quietly before you came, Mom said. You were panicking quietly. I wasn't panicking. Her breathing sped up as she defended herself. I sat beside her. Look at me. I am looking at you. Slow breath in. I know how to breathe. Then show off. Ryan almost smiled. Mom inhaled through her nose and exhaled through pursed lips. We did it 5 times. On the 6th, her shoulders began to drop. Ryan called the after-hours nursing line while I brought Mom water and crackers. He described her symptoms without exaggerating or minimizing them. When the nurse asked about medications, he carried the bottles to the phone and read the labels. I watched him do the work. He was clumsy. He repeated himself. He said milligrams like a man speaking a foreign language at customs. But he did it. The nurse told us to monitor Mom, have her eat something, and call emergency services if she developed chest pain, worsening shortness of breath, weakness, confusion, or any new symptom. She suggested anxiety could be contributing, but warned us not to assume. We repeated the blood pressure reading 10 minutes later, 138/86. Ryan sat back on his heels. That's better, right? Yes. Mom ate 4 crackers and complained that they were stale. Her color returned with her ability to criticize. I made toast. Ryan found the honey. We moved around each other in the kitchen with the awkward efficiency of 2 people carrying opposite ends of furniture after an argument. When I returned to the den, Mom had her eyes closed. Better? I asked. A little. We'll check again in 20 minutes. She opened her eyes and looked at Ryan. You came. Of course I came. You didn't even put on shoes. 1 shoe, I said. Give him credit. Mom smiled faintly. At 1, her blood pressure was close to normal. The dizziness had eased. Ryan put the cardigan around her shoulders when she shivered. You should stay, Mom said to me. Ryan's staying. Her gaze moved to him. He nodded. I'll take the couch. You don't know what to do if it happens again. The sentence was directed at him, but she looked at me. He calls the nurse, I said. He checks your symptoms. He knows where the cuff is. What if I need you? You can call me. That doesn't mean I sleep here every time you're frightened." Mom's mouth tightened. This was not a fallen rake. "I know. That's why I came. You're leaving anyway. I came to make sure you were safe. You are safe, and Ryan is here." Ryan looked tired but did not ask me to reconsider. "I've got her," he said. The words entered the room carrying all the weight of the last time he had used them. Mom looked down. I put on my coat. At the door, Ryan followed me. "Thanks," he said. It was the first thing either of us had said directly to the other since we arrived. "Take her blood pressure once more before she sleeps. Write it down. Okay, if anything changes, call." "I know." I waited for resentment. Instead, he glanced toward the den. I was scared driving over. So was I. I kept thinking she'd be on the floor. She wasn't. Still. He rubbed his eyes. "How did you do this all the time?" "I was scared all the time." He looked at me. I think he had expected another answer. Something about systems or competence or knowing which number to call. "It didn't look like it," he said. "I know." I left him barefoot in Mom's doorway. The next morning, he texted that her blood pressure was normal and that he had made eggs. He included a photograph. The eggs were brown around the edges. Dad would have classified them as aggressive. I replied, "Good. Not perfect. Not thank you for replacing me. Just good." The machinery did not restart. Ryan took Mom to her doctor the following week. He forgot to bring the medication list, drove back for it, and arrived late. Mom called me from the waiting room to complain. "He should have put it in the car last night." "Yes, you always did. I learned after forgetting it once." "You forgot?" Dad had an appointment with the lung specialist. We got all the way downtown before I realized the folder was on the kitchen table. "You never told me. You were already upset." Mom was quiet. "I thought you just knew how to do everything." "No." That answer bothered her more than I expected. If I had not been born capable, then perhaps the family had watched me become capable through repetition and chosen not to notice the cost. Ryan bought the correct yogurt on his third attempt. He learned that the furnace company kept its number on a sticker beside the thermostat. He put Mom's recycling out one day early and endured a note from the neighborhood association. He sent me a photograph of the note. Ryan. Dad would have declared war. Me. Dad would have put the trash out every night for a month. Ryan. Then written a 3-page letter about freedom. Me. 4 pages, single-spaced. For a minute, we were brother and sister. Then he wrote, "I haven't told anyone yet." I put my phone away without answering. Mom began attending the grief group after Ryan agreed to go with her once. She hated it. "They make everyone sit in a circle," she told me over coffee. "That's usually how groups work." One man talked for 20 minutes about his wife's spoon collection. Maybe he misses the spoons. He misses talking. "Did you say anything?" "No." Ryan later told me she had talked for half an hour about Dad's oxygen machine and how silence felt wrong without it. I did not tell Mom I knew. Our visits became shorter and stranger. Without errands to fill the space, we had to find things to say. Sometimes we failed. Sometimes she told me a story about Dad I had never heard, and I forgot to be angry for 5 whole minutes. Once she asked about my work and listened through the answer. I went back to Wednesday dinners with Marisol. On the first night I arrived on time, she looked at the restaurant clock and said, "Should we notify somebody? Don't make it weird. I've already ordered champagne. You ordered iced tea. Emotionally, it's champagne." I laughed hard enough that the couple at the next table glanced over. At home, I cleared the medical supplies from my spare bedroom. I kept finding Dad in objects that had never belonged to him. A package of foam swabs, a receipt for unscented detergent, a roll of blue painter's tape. I donated what could be used and threw away what could not. The room did not become a symbol. It became a room. I put clean sheets on the bed and a lamp on the table. For 3 days, I felt guilty every time I passed the open door. Then I felt nothing. Then one morning, I felt glad. Ryan came over on a Saturday carrying coffee. He had never visited my townhouse without needing something, so I waited. He stood in the kitchen, turning his cup between both hands. Aunt Marlene wants to do something for Dad's birthday. Dad would have turned 74. What kind of something? Dinner at Mom's, just a few people. Who? Marlene, Leonard, us, maybe 2 of Dad's old work friends. That sounds fine. Mom wants to make his meatloaf. Dad hated her meatloaf. I know. She says he only complained because he liked attention. He hid it in napkins. Ryan smiled. Then the smile disappeared. She wants me to tell the story again. I set down my coffee. Why? She says it'll be comforting. To who? I told her I don't want to. What did she say? That refusing will make people suspicious. Good. Ryan looked annoyed. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You say it didn't happen. At Dad's birthday dinner? You could have done it any day for the last month. I've been trying to keep Mom stable. You've been trying to wait me out. He leaned against the counter. What do you want me to say? The truth. Every detail? That is a question for your conscience, not my editorial department. I could say I remembered the time wrong, that Dad wasn't as clear as I thought. You could lie less? I'm trying to avoid destroying her. Mom survived Dad dying. She'll survive being embarrassed. You don't know that. I know you keep confusing discomfort with destruction. Ryan stared into his coffee. What if I tell them I stepped out, but not about the phone? That's the part that matters. It makes me look like I ignored him. You did. He winced. I did not apologize. Are you coming? He asked. To the dinner? Yes. Is Mom planning to repeat what Dad supposedly said about me? I don't know. Then I don't know. Ryan set his coffee down untouched. Before he left, he looked toward the cordless phone, still sitting on the kitchen shelf. Why do you keep that? I'm not sure. You don't need it anymore. I know. He left without asking me to destroy it. Mom called 2 days before the dinner. I want you there, she said. I want to be there. Then come. I won't sit through the story again. She sighed. Your brother is going to say something brief. That isn't what I said. Why do you need to control how everyone remembers your father? I nearly hung up. Instead, I said, if Ryan tells the lie, I'll leave. You can decide whether that means I should come. Friday evening, I arrived carrying Dad's favorite pie from Bellini's. Mom opened the door and hugged me before noticing what I had brought. He liked the apple better. He told you that because you bought apple. Dad's friend Leonard was already in the den. Aunt Marlene stood in the kitchen pouring wine. Ryan arrived last with no overnight bag and both shoes. Dinner was almost easy. We ate Mom's meatloaf. Leonard told a story about Dad stealing his lunch at work for 6 straight months and replacing it with increasingly strange canned food. Mom laughed until she cried. After pie, Aunt Marlene raised her glass. To Walt. We all raised ours. Then she looked at Ryan. Tell us what he said that last night, she said. One more time. Ryan's glass remained on the table. Mom placed her hand over his. Ryan. He did not look at her. Aunt Marlene's glass remained raised. Leonard slowly lowered his. Ryan rubbed one thumb along the edge of his napkin. I can't tell that story again. The room changed without anyone moving. Marlene set down her wine. Why not? Mom squeezed Ryan's hand. He means it's still difficult. No, Ryan said. His voice was quiet, but Mom released him as if he had shouted. I mean, I can't tell it because it didn't happen. Leonard leaned forward. What didn't happen? Ryan looked at me. I wished he hadn't. The glance made everyone else look at me too, as though I were directing him from across the table. This is yours, I said. He nodded once. Dad didn't wake up and give me a speech. He didn't apologize to me. He didn't ask me to take care of Mom. He didn't say those things about Claire. Aunt Marlene's eyes moved from Ryan to Mom. I don't understand. I lied. The words sat among the plates and half-eaten pie. Mom stood. This is not the time. It's Dad's birthday, Ryan said. You wanted the story. I wanted us to remember something comforting. It wasn't a memory. Leonard pushed his chair back a few inches. Start at the beginning. Ryan looked ill. Claire went home. Dad told her to. I stayed with him for a while, but his breathing got worse. His fingers tightened around the napkin. I gave him his medicine. I called hospice. I tried to sit with him. Tried? Marlene asked. I left. No one spoke. Mom carried her plate to the kitchen, even though food remained on it. She set it beside the sink with exaggerated care. Ryan continued before he could lose his nerve. I went for a drive around 11:30. I told myself it would be 10 minutes, but I kept driving. Dad called my cell at 12:47. Leonard's face tightened. You answered? Ryan shook his head. Why not? Marlene whispered. I was afraid. Of what? Everything. It was an unsatisfying answer because it was true. What happened to Walt? Leonard asked. I went back after I heard the voicemail. He was dead. Marlene covered her mouth. Mom turned from the sink. We do not know when he died. He may have died minutes before Ryan returned. That isn't the point, I said. She glared at me. Of course it's the point. Everyone is acting as if he was abandoned for hours. Ryan stared at the table. He was abandoned when he called me. You were frightened, Mom said. I was gone. Your father told you to go if you needed to. He also asked if I was coming back. Marlene's hand fell from her mouth. He left a message. 9 seconds. Do you still have it? No. That answer seemed to hurt her more than the rest. You deleted your father's last message? I couldn't keep listening to it. You could have given it to Claire. Ryan looked at me. I know. Aunt Marlene had spent weeks telling me not to interrogate his grief. Now that the lie no longer protected her comfort, she wanted evidence preserved and transferred correctly. I felt no satisfaction. Leonard leaned back and folded his arms across his chest. He had known Dad for 38 years. His face carried grief differently than ours did. It was less frantic, more settled, like a heavy object he had already decided he would have to live around. Did Walt say anything before you left? He asked. He told Claire to sleep when she called. Later, he told me I could go if I needed to. That sounds like Walt, Leonard said. Mom seized on it. Exactly. He gave Ryan permission. Leonard looked at her. Permission to be scared isn't permission to rewrite the night, Elaine. Mom's face went white. You have no idea what that night was like. No, Leonard said. I don't. His calm made the admission heavier. I know Walt could be a hard man. I know Ryan loved him. I also know you let me stand beside his casket and believe something that wasn't true. I had just lost my husband. And now? Mom had no answer. Aunt Marlene looked at Ryan. What made you invent all those things? Ryan glanced at the windows. Outside, the yard had gone black, turning the glass into a reflection of the dining room. I needed Dad to forgive me. For leaving? For everything. Marlene softened. I saw it happen. Her horror began rearranging itself into sympathy. Oh, Ryan! He held up one hand. Don't. You panicked. People do things under terrible stress. I lied afterward, because you were ashamed. Yes, shame makes people desperate. So does being humiliated at your father's funeral, I said. Marlene looked at me. I am not excusing him. You're 3 sentences away. That isn't fair. No, it's familiar. Mom came back to the table. Claire knew before tonight. Marlene's expression changed. How long? A few weeks, I said. And you didn't tell me? It wasn't my confession. But you hinted. I told you to ask them. You made me feel foolish. I didn't make you defend something you hadn't verified. I was trying to support your grieving brother. So was I. That's why it lasted 6 weeks. Ryan pushed his chair back. Stop making this Claire's fault. Everyone looked at him. He had spent so long accepting Mom's protection that even he appeared startled to hear himself reject it. She found the call on the cordless phone, he said. She asked me privately. I lied to her again. She talked to Mrs. Kovacs because none of us would tell her the truth. She didn't expose me. Mom crossed her arms. She used it to abandon me. I stopped doing every task you handed me, I said. That is not abandonment. You gave back your key. Because you used emergencies to keep me on duty. You came when I was actually sick. Yes, and then left, when you were safe. Mom looked around the table for support. Do all of you hear how cold she sounds? Leonard studied the crumbs on his plate. Aunt Marlene picked up her glass, then set it down without drinking. Ryan said, "She doesn't sound cold." Mom turned on him. "You're defending her now?" "I'm telling the truth. You think one confession changes what she's done to me?" "No. I think what we did changed what she was willing to do for us." Mom's face crumpled. "We?" The word came out as a warning. Ryan did not retreat. "You told me no one needed to know I left. You were on the floor. You helped me choose the time. I said your father might have died around then. You told me to say 12:41 because the clock had stopped. You were hysterical. You asked me what Dad had said. When I said nothing, you said there had to be something." Mom stared at him. "I was trying to keep you from falling apart. You were trying to keep yourself from knowing Dad died alone." Her hand went to her mouth. The accusation was not new, but hearing it from Ryan broke through the defenses she had built for me. "I was upstairs," she whispered. "We know," I said. "I should have heard him. You were asleep. I took a pill. Because you hadn't slept. I let you go home. Dad told me to go. And then I left him with Ryan." Ryan flinched. Mom saw it. "Oh God, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," he said. "No. You chose me because you thought Claire couldn't take one more night. You were right. Then I failed. You did not fail. You came back. After." Mom began crying. No one rushed to her. It was not cruelty. We had all finally understood that the first person to comfort her would also help close the conversation. She pulled out her chair and sat. I wanted one version of that night I could live with. I looked at the woman who had lived beside Dad for 47 years. She had washed his clothes, fought with him over money, held ice to his forehead during fevers, and slept upstairs while he died 10 feet below her. Her lie had been selfish. It had also been built around a hole large enough to swallow the rest of her life. "You were allowed to want that," I said. Mom lifted her wet face. "You weren't allowed to make me live inside it." She looked down. Aunt Marlene reached for her hand. The gesture irritated me, then relieved me. Comfort did not have to mean agreement. Someone could hold Mom without declaring her innocent. Leonard rose and began collecting plates. "I can do that," I said automatically. He handed me 2. "So can I." We cleared the table together. In the kitchen, I scraped meatloaf into the trash while Leonard wrapped the remaining pie. "You okay?" he asked. "No." Good answer. I thought the truth would feel different. How? Cleaner. Leonard folded foil over the pie plate. Truth's usually the part that makes the mess visible. Dad would have liked that sentence enough to pretend he had said it first. When we returned to the dining room, Ryan was telling Marlene about the voicemail. Mom sat listening with both hands wrapped around her untouched wine glass. Marlene cried. Ryan did not. He described Dad's voice as weak but annoyed. "You coming back, son?" Not a plea. A question carrying the expectation that Ryan might still make the right choice. "Walt always asked questions like accusations," Leonard said. Ryan nodded. "I think that's why I couldn't keep it." Marlene squeezed his shoulder. "You made a terrible mistake." "Yes." "You were also terrified." "Yes." Both things remained true. No one had to turn one into the other. Mom looked at me. "He really only told you to sleep?" It was the last word I heard. Before that, I said I loved him. Did he answer? "No, I'm sure he heard you." "I don't know." "He knew." "Maybe." Mom seemed pained by my refusal to accept certainty as comfort. After Leonard and Marlene left, I carried my pie dish to the front door. Ryan followed with his coat. Mom remained at the dining table. "Are you both leaving?" she asked. "It's late," I said. She glanced toward the dark den. Ryan hesitated. I saw the old arrangement reaching for us. Mom alone, Ryan guilty, me already calculating whether I had clean clothes for morning. "I'll stay," Ryan said. Mom looked relieved. Then Ryan added, "Tonight. Tomorrow we talk about what staying means." Her relief faded, but she nodded. Outside, cold air hit my face. Ryan walked me to my car. "I'm going to call the people I told directly," he said. "Leonard, Aunt Marlene, Dad's friends. They know now. I mean the others. You don't have to report to me, I'm not. I'm telling you what I'm doing." I unlocked the car. "I don't forgive you yet. I know. I'm not sure what forgiveness would even change. I know that too." He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. "Mom was right about one thing." "What?" "Dad did lean on you too much. That wasn't her lie to tell." "No." He looked back at the glowing kitchen window. "I think we all did." I got into the car without answering. Before I closed the door, Ryan said, "He knew you loved him." My hand tightened on the handle. "You don't get to tell me what he knew." Ryan nodded. "You're right." For once, he did not replace uncertainty with a prettier story. I drove home carrying the truth, and it felt nothing like victory. The next morning, Ryan sent a message to the family group. "I need to correct something I said at Dad's funeral." He did not have the final conversation I described. I left the house for a while that night because I panicked. When Dad called me, I did not answer. I returned after he had died. "Claire learned the truth recently and gave me the opportunity to tell you myself. I'm sorry I lied and used Dad's voice to make my choices easier to live with." I read it twice. Then I muted the conversation. Messages still appeared on the screen. Aunt Marlene thanked him for being honest. One relative said grief made people do unthinkable things. Another wrote that what mattered was Ryan had come back. Someone asked whether Mom was all right. Someone else sent me a private message asking if I had pressured my brother into making a humiliating confession. The truth did not transform our family into better people. It only removed one place where we had been able to hide. Ryan called Dad's friends. Leonard already knew, but Ryan called him anyway. He contacted the woman from Mom's garden club, who had told him Dad chose the right man. According to Ryan, she cried and said his confession made the story more beautiful because it showed how deeply sons love their fathers. She turned it into another compliment, he told me. We were speaking on the phone because he had called to ask where Mom kept the instructions for the washing machine. They're printed inside the lid. I'm looking at the lid. The other side. He lifted it. "Oh. What did you think I meant?" "I don't know. I'm under pressure. I heard Mom in the background telling him not to mix towels with blouses." "What should I say to the garden club woman?" he asked. "Nothing. She thinks I'm brave. You can't control what people do with the truth. That sounds like something Marisol told you." "It is. Tell her I said thanks. I'm not managing your relationship with Marisol. I don't have a relationship with Marisol." "Exactly. One less thing for me to manage." He laughed. It was brief and uncomfortable, but it belonged to us. Mom did not call for 5 days. On the first day, I welcomed the silence. On the second, I checked my phone repeatedly to make sure the ringer worked. By the fourth, I drove past her street on my way home from work, then became angry at myself for doing it. Her kitchen light was on. Ryan's truck was in the driveway. I did not stop. On the 6th morning, she called at 8:03. "I made too much coffee," she said. "That sounds serious. You don't have to be sarcastic." I was joking. "Oh." We sat in the awkwardness. Then Mom said, "Would you like some?" I went over at 10. The hallway bulb was working. The laundry basket was gone. An unfamiliar brand of yogurt occupied half the refrigerator because Ryan had apparently bought a 12-pack after discovering the correct flavor. Mom and I drank coffee at the kitchen table. No paperwork waited beside my cup. No broken household object had been placed where I might notice it. I did notice the faucet dripping, but I let it drip. Mom watched me hear it. I called a plumber. "Good. He's coming Tuesday." "Okay. You don't think I picked the right company. I don't know which company you picked. You could ask. Do you want me to?" She thought about it. "No." We drank more coffee. "I'm angry with Ryan," she said. "That makes sense. I'm angry with you too. That also makes sense. You embarrassed me in front of Marlene and Leonard. Ryan told the truth in front of them. You pushed him. He chose the time." Mom looked toward the den. I keep thinking if I had just stayed downstairs, none of this would have happened. Dad still would have died. He wouldn't have been alone. You might have been asleep in the recliner. Ryan might have stayed if you were there, or Dad might have waited until you went to the bathroom. You can build versions forever. She traced the rim of her mug. That sounds like advice. It isn't. It's what I tell myself. Mom looked at me. I shouldn't have let you leave. Dad told me to go. I should have asked you to stay anyway. I might have. I know. There was the old trap. My usefulness was so reliable that even her regret assumed access to it. I was exhausted, I said. I know. No, you knew I looked exhausted. I don't think any of you understood that I was close to not functioning. You never said. I wore 2 different socks and couldn't remember what day it was. I thought you were being funny. I was being funny. That's what made it hard to tell. Mom's mouth trembled into a sad smile. Your father did that. Yes. We sat with Dad between us, not speaking through either of us. Mom took a breath. I knew Ryan might disappear if people learned he left. You told me. I don't think I understood what I was admitting. I waited. He had disappeared before. After his divorce, after your father criticized his job. Whenever he felt ashamed, he stopped answering. I thought if everyone blamed him for Walt dying alone, I would lose him. So you chose me. I knew you would be angry, but I would still come. Mom looked down. Yes. The word hurt even though I had dragged it into the light myself. You were the safe one, she said. The one I thought I could hurt without losing. That isn't what safe is supposed to mean. I know. No, I need you to understand it. You didn't protect the fragile person. You protected the person who made fragility profitable. Mom closed her eyes. That sounds terrible. It was. I'm sorry. I had heard apologies that asked to be comforted. This one did not reach for me. It stayed on her side of the table and waited. I believe you're sorry, I said. Do you forgive me? Not yet. She nodded. It was the first apology in our family that had survived without immediate forgiveness. I left after an hour. The faucet was still dripping. Tuesday, the plumber fixed it. Ryan's first month as Mom's dependable person was ugly. He missed a grief group meeting because a client appointment ran late. Mom called me to report this as proof of his moral collapse. Did he call you? Yes. Did he apologize? Yes. Did he reschedule? He's taking me Thursday. Then he missed 1 meeting. You would not have missed it. I missed things. I just repaired them before you noticed. Mom went quiet. On Thursday, Ryan arrived early. He learned how to refill Mom's prescriptions without buying 14 unrelated items from the pharmacy. He started putting appointments in his phone. He spent 1 Saturday cleaning Dad's tools from the garage and called me 6 times to ask which ones Dad had promised Leonard. I answered 2 of the calls. The others, he figured out himself. He did not become me. That was not the goal, though it took all 3 of us time to understand it. Sometimes he said no to Mom. Sometimes she accepted no from him more easily than she ever had from me. The first few times, rage burned through me. Then I noticed what happened when I did not intervene. Mom became irritated. Ryan remained her son. Dinner still occurred. No one died from disappointment. Aunt Marlene asked to meet me for lunch. She apologized before the menus arrived. I made your father's supposed words into a reason not to listen to you. Yes. I thought I was protecting Ryan's grief. You were protecting the story because it comforted you. She winced. Yes. The server came, and Marlene ordered soup she later declared too salty. When the check arrived, she reached for it. I'd like to do something for you. You can buy lunch. She did. That was enough for the day. Ryan's apologies came in pieces. He apologized for leaving Dad. I told him that part belonged between him and Dad, and I could not resolve it. He apologized for the eulogy. I told him I still heard the applause sometimes. He apologized for inventing Dad's criticism of me. I made your care sound selfish because mine had failed, he said. We were sitting in my kitchen. He had come to pick up the cordless phone after Mom finally canceled the landline service. I resented you, he continued. You were always the one who knew what to do. I learned. I know that now. You could have learned sooner. Yes. He did not explain. I noticed. Do you forgive me? He asked. More than I did. That isn't a yes. It isn't a no. He accepted that too. The cordless phone rested on the table between us. You keeping it? He asked. No. He looked surprised. I thought it mattered to you. It did. What should I do with it? Recycle it. Ryan picked it up, then paused. You don't want the call history? I remember the time. 12:47 had changed everything, but it was not the truth itself. It was only the crack that let me see what my family had built around me. I no longer needed to preserve the crack as proof. Ryan took the phone. Before leaving, he said, Mom wants to sort Dad's clothes Saturday. Does she want help or company? I asked her that. What did she say? Both. I can do both for 2 hours. Me too. We met at 10. Dad's closet still smelled faintly of cedar blocks and the aftershave he had stopped wearing when strong scents made breathing harder. Mom sat on the bed while Ryan and I carried shirts to her one at a time. Keep. Donate. Throw away. Mom kept too much at first. Then she found the gray suit. She ran her palm over the sleeve. He wanted this one for the funeral. Yes. I knew that. I looked at her. I told myself the Navy looked more like him. It looked more like the version of him you wanted to remember. She nodded. Did you hate it? The Navy suit? Me choosing it. I hated everything that week. That's fair. Ryan held up one of Dad's plaid shirts. This has a hole in it. Keep, Mom and I said together. We looked at each other and laughed. Not because anything was fixed. Dad was still dead. Ryan had still left. Mom had still chosen a lie, and I had not forgotten what it felt like to sit in that chapel while everyone turned toward me. But laughter did not need to certify forgiveness. It could simply happen. Near the back of the closet, I found the sweater Dad had worn the night I changed the damp sheet beneath him. The memory returned with such physical clarity that I could feel his fingers around my wrist. You make this bearable. Then, because tenderness embarrassed him, he had complained about the corners. I held the sweater against my chest. Mom watched me. What is it? Nothing. I almost left it there. Then I said, he thanked me once. For what? For helping. He said I made it bearable. Mom's face softened. He did love you. I know. The answer surprised me. Not because I had finally accepted Ryan's replacement certainty or Mom's need to make every painful memory comforting. Dad's love had never been the same thing as fairness. He loved me and used my reliability. He trusted me and took me for granted. He wanted me near, then told me to sleep. All of it could be true without one final sentence deciding the rest. I folded the sweater and placed it in the keep pile. When our 2 hours ended, 3 donation bags remained by the bedroom door. I can take those, I said. Ryan reached for 2. I've got them. This time, I let him. Downstairs, Mom made coffee. The faucet did not drip. The den held Dad's recliner, 1 lamp, and no hospital bed. Nothing had replaced the empty space yet. Mom handed me a mug. Can you stay a while? I looked at the clock. I had nowhere I needed to be. Yes, I said, because I wanted to.